What if the clarity you've been searching for isn't something you find, but something you build? Imagine waking up each day with a calm mind, unshaken by the noise, the pressure, and the uncertainty that surrounds you. Sounds impossible in today's world, doesn't it? But more than 2,000 years ago, a group of philosophers developed a way of thinking so powerful, it still holds the key to mental clarity today. Welcome to the ultimate Stoicism guide to a clear mind. In this guide, we're not just exploring ideas, we're stepping into a mindset that cuts through confusion and brings you back to what really matters. Stoicism teaches us how to let go of what we can't control, sharpen our focus, and train the mind to stay steady, no matter what life throws our way. This is more than philosophy. It's a roadmap to peace, purpose, and a mind that sees clearly, even in chaos. Let's begin. Picture waking up every morning with a crystal-clear sense of purpose, unmoved by setbacks, unfazed by the chaos swirling around you, and relentlessly focused on what truly matters in life. This might sound almost superhuman in our modern world of endless distractions and constant noise, yet this was the everyday reality for one of the most powerful men in ancient history, Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher. His personal notes, a collection of thoughts and reflections that has miraculously survived millennia, aren't merely the musings of a bygone era, but offer startlingly relevant advice on how to harness the power of self-discipline amidst the complexities of contemporary life. As we dive deep into the heart of Stoicism, we're not exploring abstract philosophical concepts, but rather practical tools for living a more disciplined and fulfilled existence. Stoicism teaches us how to transform adversity into advantage, emotional turmoil into tranquility, and life's inherent unpredictability into a wellspring of inner strength. Whether you're struggling with daily stresses, seeking genuine inner peace, or looking to elevate your productivity and focus, understanding the Stoic way of life offers profound insights that remain as powerful today as they were 2,000 years ago. In our world brimming with endless distractions, instant gratifications, and the constant pressure to react to external circumstances, Stoic philosophy grounds us in the timeless virtues of wisdom, courage, justice, and moderation. This ancient wisdom isn't about merely enduring life's challenges, it's about learning to thrive regardless of what circumstances present themselves. It's about developing an unshakable foundation of character that allows you to navigate both triumph and tragedy with equal composure and grace. At the very heart of Marcus Aurelius's philosophy lies the fundamental belief that self-discipline begins with discovering your authentic purpose. But what does it truly mean to find your purpose in the context of Stoic thought? It's far more than identifying a career path or setting ambitious goals. Finding your purpose is about discovering what genuinely matters to you at the deepest level, understanding what drives you at your very core, and then systematically aligning your daily actions with that deeper calling. Marcus Aurelius frequently wrote about the importance of living in agreement with nature, which in Stoic terminology means understanding your unique role within the larger scheme of existence and acting in harmony with your highest virtues. For Aurelius, purpose wasn't just a lofty philosophical ideal to contemplate during quiet moments of reflection. It served as a practical compass that guided every decision he made, from the most mundane daily choices to the most monumental imperial responsibilities. He believed deeply that understanding one's purpose is what propels you out of bed each morning, ready to face whatever challenges the day might bring. It's what keeps you steadfast when temptations beckon you to stray from your path, and it's what sustains you during periods of difficulty and doubt. This isn't about pursuing grandiose achievements or seeking external accolades and recognition. Rather, it's about faithfully fulfilling the duties that life has laid out for you, performing each task with unwavering commitment and uncompromising integrity. In our modern context, finding your purpose can often feel overwhelming and elusive. We live in a society saturated with choices, opportunities, and distractions that can easily lead us away from our true paths. Social media bombards us with images of others' seemingly perfect lives, creating artificial standards and expectations. Career options seem limitless, yet paradoxically paralyzing. The constant noise of opinions, advice, and societal pressures can drown out our inner voice. This is precisely where Stoic wisdom proves not just helpful, but absolutely essential. Stoicism teaches us to systematically peel back the layers of superficial desires, fleeting emotions, and external expectations to reveal what is truly essential for our well-being and growth. It encourages us to regularly ask ourselves penetrating questions. What is truly worth my time and energy? How can my actions today contribute meaningfully to the greater good? How can I use my unique talents and circumstances to serve something larger than myself? What legacy do I want to leave through my daily choices and behaviors? As we learn to apply this principle in our lives, we must pay attention to what we are naturally drawn toward, where we find deep and lasting satisfaction, and what challenges we feel genuinely motivated to solve. These are not random preferences, but important clues pointing toward our authentic purpose. Once we begin to identify these patterns, the Stoic practice of daily reflection becomes invaluable for maintaining our course. The practice of continually aligning your actions with your purpose, saying no to what doesn't serve your highest good and yes to what does, cultivates the self-discipline necessary to live a truly meaningful and impactful life. This requires constant vigilance and honest self-assessment. It means regularly evaluating whether your current activities, relationships, and commitments are moving you toward or away from your deeper purpose. Taking this insight from Marcus Aurelius and applying it practically, consider asking yourself each morning, what am I meant to do today that aligns with my deepest values? And each evening, engage in honest reflection. Have I lived true to my purpose today? Over time, this consistent practice will not only build tremendous self-discipline, but will gradually transform your entire life into a more purposeful and genuinely fulfilling journey. When Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about self-discipline, a recurring theme throughout his personal reflections was the critical importance of learning to rely fundamentally on oneself. The principle of counting on yourself extends far beyond simple self-reliance. It represents an integral component of Stoic philosophy that emphasizes personal accountability, independence of thought, and inner strength. This concept isn't about isolation, stubbornly rejecting assistance from others, or believing you must face every challenge alone. Rather, it's about recognizing and accepting that the ultimate responsibility for your actions, reactions, and personal growth rests squarely within yourself. In Stoicism, the idea of focusing exclusively on what lies within your direct control is paramount to living well. Aurelius frequently discussed the immense power of the self in confronting whatever challenges life inevitably throws your way. By learning to count on yourself, you tap into your inner reservoir of resilience and strength, qualities that no external circumstance can diminish or destroy. This principle teaches you to trust deeply in your abilities to navigate through life's uncertainties and adversities with grace and wisdom. Building this kind of self-reliance means developing confidence not through arrogance or false bravado, but through genuine competence and a thorough, honest understanding of your own capacities and virtues. It requires you to become intimately familiar with your strengths and limitations, your patterns of thinking and reacting, and your core values and principles. This self-knowledge forms the foundation for making decisions that align with your authentic self, rather than being swayed by external pressures or the opinions of others. This emphasis on self-reliance can feel both liberating and daunting in today's hyper-connected world, where opinions, advice, and judgments are constantly available at our fingertips. Social media, news, and the endless stream of content can create a constant buzz of external voices, making it increasingly challenging to hear and trust your own inner voice. However, Stoicism provides practical guidance for filtering out this noise and learning to rely on your own reason and judgment. Aurelius believed that this internal guidance system was the most reliable counsel anyone could have because it is rooted in reason, experience, and virtue rather than emotion, bias, or external agenda. By learning to count on yourself, you develop true autonomy in your decision-making processes. This autonomy enables you to make choices that genuinely align with your values and principles, rather than being constantly swayed by external pressures, temporary emotions, or the need for approval from others. This autonomy is absolutely crucial for maintaining personal integrity and for living a life that remains true to your deepest convictions. It means taking full ownership of your choices and their consequences, both positive and negative. It means not blaming others when things go wrong, or crediting others when you succeed through your own effort and discipline. So, how can you begin to truly count on yourself in practical terms? It starts with small, manageable steps that gradually build your confidence and self-trust. Begin by making modest commitments to yourself and then keeping them religiously, regardless of how you feel in the moment. Set personal goals that matter to you and work toward them independently, without constantly seeking validation or approval from others. Take regular time to reflect deeply on your decisions and evaluate how well they align with your core values and long-term objectives. Pay attention to the outcomes of your choices and learn from both successes and failures. Notice when you tend to look to others for answers that you could find within yourself. Practice making decisions based on your own careful reasoning, rather than immediately seeking the opinions of friends, family, or online communities. Over time, these practices will significantly strengthen your self-discipline and make you more resilient and grounded when facing life's inevitable challenges. Marcus Aurelius consistently emphasized the transformative power of persistence, of showing up not just physically, but with full engagement and presence every single day. This practice isn't about sporadic bursts of monumental effort or waiting for inspiration to strike. Instead, it's about cultivating the quiet, steady dedication to daily tasks and responsibilities that collectively forge a truly disciplined life. For Aurelius, showing up every day was synonymous with the Stoic ideal of living in accordance with nature. To him, nature demanded not just that we exist passively, but that we actively and meaningfully participate in life, contributing to the world through our actions, no matter how small or routine they might initially seem. Each new day presented itself as a fresh arena, not for grand battles or dramatic gestures, but for proving one's ongoing commitment to their principles and duties. It's in this consistency, this everyday effort and dedication, where authentic character is both built and rigorously tested. In today's world, where distractions are abundant and motivation can be frustratingly fleeting, the idea of showing up every day gains even greater significance and urgency. It's remarkably easy to feel inspired and motivated one day, making grand plans and ambitious resolutions, only to find yourself completely off track and discouraged the next. Here, Stoicism teaches us the immense value of consistency over intensity. It's not the spectacular efforts that transform us, but the regularity and reliability of our actions that cultivate true, lasting discipline. This doesn't mean that every day needs to be a masterpiece of productivity or that you must constantly push yourself to exhaustion. Rather, it's about ensuring that no day slips by completely unnoticed or unutilized. It's about making sure that each day, regardless of how you feel or what challenges you face, you take at least some meaningful action toward your goals and values. Whether you're working to advance in your career, improve your physical health, deepen your relationships, develop a new skill, or simply become a better person, genuine progress in any area requires the simple, often overlooked commitment to show up consistently, day after day. This showing up might look different depending on your circumstances, energy level, or current challenges, but the key is maintaining the commitment regardless of external conditions. Moreover, showing up every day is deeply intertwined with the Stoic practice of mindfulness and present moment awareness. It means being fully present in the now and focusing on doing today's work today without carrying the burdens of yesterday's failures or tomorrow's worries. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about the importance of focusing on the present moment, about doing the task at hand to the absolute best of your ability, without being distracted by past regrets or future anxieties. This intense focus on the present is what transforms routine activities into meaningful rituals and converts effort into genuine improvement. When you approach each day's tasks with full presence and commitment, even mundane activities become opportunities for growth and self-development. This perspective can completely change how you experience daily life, infusing ordinary moments with purpose and significance. To cultivate this discipline in your own life, start with small, manageable commitments. Decide what showing up means specifically for you and your current goals. It could be as simple as writing a single paragraph of that book you've been meaning to write, doing a brief 5-minute workout, spending 10 uninterrupted minutes in meaningful conversation with a loved one, or reading one page of an important book. The scale of the commitment is far less important than the act of showing up itself. Each day that you honor your commitment, regardless of how you feel or what obstacles you encounter, you reinforce your willpower and build the inner resilience that defines Stoic philosophy. You demonstrate to yourself that you are someone who can be trusted to follow through on commitments, which gradually builds unshakable self-confidence. By adopting this daily practice of showing up, you embody the Stoic belief in personal responsibility and continuous self-improvement. You become a living testament to the idea that while we may not be able to control outcomes, we always retain complete control over our efforts and our commitment. In the consistent act of showing up, we discover and develop the discipline necessary to lead a purposeful and deeply fulfilling life. The Stoic practice of voluntarily embracing discomfort, strongly advocated by Marcus Aurelius, involves much more than simply making life intentionally difficult or engaging in meaningless suffering. This principle is fundamentally about preparing yourself mentally and emotionally for life's unpredictabilities, systematically strengthening your resilience and deepening your appreciation for the things you currently have, but perhaps take for granted. Marcus Aurelius, like many Stoic philosophers, believed that experiencing discomfort voluntarily helps fortify the mind against times when life inevitably forces discomfort upon you. This might mean consciously choosing to forego certain luxuries you've grown accustomed to, deliberately enduring physical challenges that push your limits, or simply practicing self-denial in small but meaningful everyday decisions. The underlying logic is straightforward yet profound. If you're already accustomed to various forms of hardship through voluntary practice, sudden adversities won't throw you off balance emotionally or mentally. You're essentially training your resilience like a muscle, ensuring that you can face life's inevitable challenges with a calm, composed mind and a steady heart. This preparation isn't about becoming pessimistic or expecting the worst. It's about building the inner strength to handle whatever comes your way with grace and equanimity. But why deliberately embrace discomfort in a world that constantly strives to offer us greater comfort, convenience, and ease? The answer lies in the very fabric of Stoic philosophy and our understanding of human psychology. Growth, both personal and spiritual, most often happens at the edges of our comfort zones. By voluntarily stepping into less comfortable spaces, we not only test our mental and emotional boundaries, but systematically expand them over time. This practice isn't about punishing yourself or believing that suffering is inherently valuable. Instead, it's about fundamentally shifting your perspective from seeing comfort as an absolute necessity to viewing it as a luxury that you can consciously choose to enjoy or do without. This shift in perspective creates tremendous freedom and reduces your dependence on external circumstances for your well-being and happiness. When you practice voluntary hardship regularly, you also cultivate deep gratitude for the things you might otherwise take completely for granted. It's remarkably easy to become accustomed to everyday comforts and conveniences without truly appreciating them. But when you occasionally live without these comforts, you begin to appreciate them far more profoundly and genuinely. This heightened appreciation might come from something as simple as occasionally skipping a meal, which can dramatically heighten your appreciation for the food you do have and make you more conscious of the privilege of regular meals. It might involve choosing to walk or bike instead of driving when possible, which could deepen your gratitude for mobility, health, and the convenience of transportation. Or it could mean taking cold showers, sleeping on the floor occasionally, or limiting your use of technology for extended periods. Moreover, voluntary hardship connects you to the reality that many people around the world live with involuntarily every single day. This connection can foster genuine empathy, humility, and a deeper, more nuanced understanding of the human condition. It anchors you more firmly in the reality of the world we share with others, rather than living in a bubble of comfort and privilege that can insulate you from understanding others' experiences. The practice also builds mental toughness and emotional resilience in ways that no amount of theoretical learning can accomplish. When you voluntarily choose discomfort and push through it, you prove to yourself that you're capable of handling more than you might have believed. This self-knowledge becomes invaluable during genuinely difficult times when you need to draw upon your inner reserves of strength and determination. So how can you thoughtfully integrate this practice into your daily life? Start small and choose something manageable that won't overwhelm you or create unnecessary stress. You might choose to wake up an hour earlier than usual for a week. Limit your use of technology for an entire day. Choose the stairs over the elevator consistently. Eat simple meals without seasoning, or sleep without your usual comforts occasionally. You could also incorporate physical challenges like cold showers, exercise that pushes your limits, or spending time outdoors in uncomfortable weather. The key isn't the scale or intensity of the hardship, but the regularity, intention, and mindfulness you bring to it. Each deliberate act of voluntary discomfort becomes a meaningful step toward greater mental fortitude, emotional resilience, and unshakable self-discipline. One of the most transformative concepts in Stoic philosophy is the dichotomy of control, a principle that distinguishes clearly between what is and isn't within your direct control, urging you to focus your energy, attention, and emotional investment solely on the former. This seemingly simple concept can profoundly transform your entire approach to life's challenges, dramatically reducing anxiety and fostering a much deeper sense of inner peace and resilience. So what exactly lies within your control according to Stoic philosophy? Primarily, it's your own actions, reactions, and judgments. Your thoughts, your will, your responses to events, your choices about how to interpret situations, your decisions about where to focus your attention, these constitute the primary arenas where you have genuine agency and power. Everything external to these internal processes, the weather, the actions and decisions of others, global events, economic conditions, other people's opinions of you, lies outside your direct control. Marcus Aurelius consistently emphasized this crucial point throughout his personal meditations, noting repeatedly that becoming upset, disturbed, or emotionally reactive about things outside your control is not just futile, but actively counterproductive to your well-being and effectiveness. He understood that energy spent worrying about uncontrollable factors is energy that could be better invested in areas where you can actually make a meaningful difference. Practicing the dichotomy of control starts with this fundamental realization. While you can certainly influence external events through your actions and choices, you cannot control them entirely. The Stoic learns to accept this fact not as a passive resignation, but as a liberating truth that frees you to focus on what actually matters. By concentrating on your own actions and letting go of attachment to specific outcomes, you can maintain your tranquility and effectiveness regardless of circumstances. This doesn't mean becoming indifferent, detached, or uncaring about the world around you. Instead, it means learning to engage with life more constructively, channeling your efforts precisely where they can actually make a tangible difference rather than dissipating your energy on things beyond your influence. In practical daily life, applying the dichotomy of control means developing the habit of asking yourself, "Is this within my control?" before reacting emotionally to any situation. If the answer is no, the Stoic practice is to consciously let it go and redirect your attention to what you can control. This is undoubtedly easier said than done, requiring consistent practice, mindfulness, and occasional gentle reminders to yourself about what truly lies within your sphere of influence. This principle has profound implications for how you approach goal setting and manage your expectations around outcomes. While it's natural and appropriate to strive toward your goals with dedication and effort, tying your happiness, self-worth, or sense of success exclusively to the realization of outcomes determined by countless external factors is setting yourself up for frustration and disappointment. Instead, Stoicism teaches you to find deep satisfaction in the pursuit itself, in your adherence to your values throughout the process, and in the quality of effort you consistently put forth. This shift in focus from outcomes to process, from external validation to internal integrity, creates a much more stable and sustainable foundation for well-being and success. Marcus Aurelius and other Stoic philosophers never promised a life without challenges, setbacks, or disappointments. Instead, they offered a practical strategy for maintaining inner peace, personal dignity, and emotional stability, regardless of life's inevitable highs and lows. By consistently practicing this principle of focusing on what you can control, you not only enhance the quality of your own life, but can also positively influence those around you through your example of calmness and resilience in the face of uncertainty. The Stoic principle of refusing to adopt a victim mentality represents a profound understanding of personal responsibility and the unwavering commitment to self-mastery that lies at the heart of this ancient philosophy. Rather than succumbing to a victim mindset, where you see yourself as a passive recipient of life's hardships and injustices, Stoicism empowers you to seize control over your perceptions, interpretations, and reactions to events. This empowerment is absolutely central to the Stoic belief that your happiness, peace of mind, and overall well-being are determined far more by your internal state and responses than by external events and circumstances. The idea isn't to deny or minimize the very real difficulties, injustices, or hardships that you might face in life. Rather, it's about fundamentally shifting your focus from what happens to you to how you choose to respond to what happens. Aurelius believed deeply that every external event, whether positive or negative, comes with a fundamental choice. How will you let this experience define you? Will you allow it to diminish your character, or will you use it as an opportunity to demonstrate and strengthen your virtues? By refusing to play the victim, you reject the disempowering idea that your emotional well-being, personal growth, and life satisfaction are entirely at the mercy of external circumstances. This is a profoundly liberating realization that opens the door to greater personal growth, emotional resilience, and genuine empowerment. When you stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances, you begin to see yourself as the primary author of your own experience, capable of choosing your responses and thereby shaping your life's direction. In practicing this principle, start by observing your habitual responses to challenging situations with honest self-awareness. Do you immediately look for external factors or other people to blame when things go wrong? Do you spend your mental and emotional energy complaining about situations rather than taking constructive action to address them? Do you find yourself frequently saying things like, "I can't help it," "It's not my fault," or "There's nothing I can do"? Changing these deeply ingrained patterns isn't about suppressing your feelings or denying legitimate emotions like disappointment, frustration, or sadness. Rather, it's about understanding these emotions more deeply and then consciously redirecting your energies in more constructive directions. It involves fully acknowledging your pain and disappointments while simultaneously recognizing your inherent capacity to move forward and grow despite them. This Stoic teaching encourages you to view every obstacle, setback, or challenge as a valuable opportunity to practice virtue and strengthen your character. This perspective is fundamentally proactive and deeply empowering. It transforms potential feelings of helplessness into moments of conscious choice where you can assert your agency and demonstrate your values. Each challenge becomes a test of your commitment to your principles and an opportunity to demonstrate the qualities that define the Stoic ideal. Fortitude in the face of adversity, perseverance when things get difficult, and unshakable resilience when life doesn't go according to plan. Rather than asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you learn to ask, "How can I grow from this experience?" and "What virtues can I practice in this situation?" By consistently refusing to play the victim, you embody the Stoic ideal of emotional independence and inner strength. You develop what Marcus Aurelius called an inner citadel, a fortress of calm and equanimity from which you can engage with the world more fully, freely, and effectively. This doesn't mean becoming emotionless, cold, or indifferent to the suffering around you. Rather, it means achieving a state where your fundamental happiness and sense of self-worth aren't easily disrupted by the inevitable ups and downs of life. In this way, you learn to live not at the whim of your circumstances, but in conscious alignment with your deepest principles and values, regardless of what life throws your way. This creates a foundation of inner strength that no external force can shake or destroy. Marcus Aurelius championed the principle of delayed gratification not merely as a personal discipline, but as a fundamental pathway to greater freedom and more lasting satisfaction. In the Stoic view, learning to master your impulses by consciously delaying gratification isn't about denying yourself pleasure or living a life of unnecessary austerity. Instead, it's about achieving a higher, more sustainable form of fulfillment that remains aligned with your deepest values and long-term goals. Delayed gratification in the Stoic sense involves the strategic postponement of immediate desires in order to gain more significant, meaningful, and enduring rewards. It's about making conscious choices that might not offer instant satisfaction, but lead to lasting well-being, personal growth, and genuine contentment. This principle proves particularly relevant in our modern culture of instant everything, where the ability to wait, to hold off for something better, has become an increasingly rare and valuable skill. For Stoics like Aurelius, the practice of delayed gratification was also fundamentally about maintaining mastery over your desires and impulses rather than being controlled by them. He believed that being enslaved to fleeting pleasures could lead to a profound loss of freedom, as you become captive to your whims, impulses, and the constant need for immediate satisfaction. Instead, by exercising conscious restraint and making choices based on reason and long-term thinking, you cultivate a life not just of temporary pleasures, but of lasting tranquility and deep contentment. The practice of delayed gratification can be implemented in everyday life through various simple but powerful habits. It might mean choosing to save money rather than spending it impulsively on things you don't really need. It could involve selecting nutritious, wholesome meals over convenient but unhealthy fast food options. It might mean dedicating time to study, practice a valuable skill, or engage in meaningful work instead of defaulting to immediate leisure activities or passive entertainment. Each of these conscious choices reinforces the Stoic practice of prioritizing long-term benefits over short-term ease, convenience, or pleasure. This builds what psychologists call willpower muscle, the capacity to make decisions based on your values and long-term interests rather than immediate impulses and emotions. The benefits of consistently practicing delayed gratification are extensive and well documented. Modern psychological research strongly supports the Stoic understanding, consistently linking the ability to delay gratification to better outcomes across virtually every area of life, including career advancement, educational achievement, physical health, and personal relationships. People who can postpone immediate gratification are generally better at managing stress, reaching their long-term goals, maintaining healthy relationships, and living more fulfilling, purpose-driven lives. This enhanced capacity for delayed gratification also creates greater emotional stability and resilience. When you're not constantly driven by immediate desires and impulses, you develop a more stable internal compass that helps guide your decisions. You become less reactive to external pressures and more proactive in creating the life you actually want to live. The Stoic concept of ignoring naysayers goes far beyond simply not listening to negative feedback or criticism. It's about cultivating a deep mental resilience that allows you to remain steadfast in your convictions and focused on your authentic goals, even when facing significant doubt and skepticism from others. For Stoics, the approval or disapproval of others falls squarely outside your control and therefore shouldn't be relied upon for personal validation, guidance, or decision-making. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about focusing exclusively on actions and opinions within your own control, emphasizing repeatedly that true peace comes from within and cannot be shaken by external judgments, no matter how loudly or frequently they're expressed. This Stoic indifference to others' opinions isn't about being dismissive, arrogant, or uncaring about other people. Rather, it's about maintaining a strong internal locus of control that allows you to filter out noise that doesn't serve your higher purposes or align with your core values. In practical terms, ignoring naysayers becomes crucial in our modern world, where opinions are abundant. Criticism is often just a click away, and everyone seems to have strong views about how others should live their lives. Social media amplifies this phenomenon, creating echo chambers where negative voices can seem overwhelming and discouraging. Feedback can feel constant and inescapable. The Stoic approach involves recognizing that while constructive feedback can indeed be valuable for personal growth and improvement, baseless criticism, discouragement, and negativity should not deter you from pursuing your authentic path. This distinction between constructive feedback and destructive negativity is vital and requires developing wisdom and discernment. Stoicism teaches you to carefully evaluate the source and intent of any criticism you receive. Is it coming from someone with genuine expertise and experience in the relevant area? Is it offered with good intentions and your best interests at heart? Does it align with your core values and long-term objectives? Is it specific, actionable, and focused on behaviors rather than attacking your character or worth as a person? Practicing this principle means building a personal philosophy robust and well-reasoned enough to withstand external pressures and maintain its integrity under scrutiny. It's about developing genuine confidence in your decisions and actions, not out of arrogance or stubborn pride, but from a deep understanding of your own values, objectives, and the reasoning behind your choices. This was what Marcus Aurelius practiced daily, not just as a powerful ruler dealing with political pressures, but as a human being striving for virtue and authenticity in a complex, often judgmental world. He understood that leadership, growth, and living according to your principles often requires the courage to stand apart from the crowd and maintain your course despite criticism. The ability to ignore naysayers also significantly enhances your emotional resilience, making you less reactive to negative opinions and more consistently focused on your long-term vision and goals. In a culture that often emphasizes social validation loops and the constant need for approval, being able to step outside this cycle and remain true to yourself becomes both rare and powerful. Embracing this Stoic practice means not only protecting your mental and emotional space from unnecessary negativity, but also actively choosing where to invest your precious emotional energy. It's about refusing to let external noise distract you from the internal dialogue and self-reflection that truly shapes your life and character. The Stoic practice of emulating wise individuals is rooted in the profound belief that much of our most valuable learning and personal development comes from carefully observing and reflecting on the lives of those who have successfully mastered the virtues we aspire to develop in ourselves. This emulation isn't about blindly copying others or losing your individual identity. Rather, it's about learning from their examples, studying their approaches to challenges, and incorporating their wisdom to enhance your own character and judgment. Marcus Aurelius, despite holding the ultimate position of power as Roman emperor, often wrote with deep admiration about the qualities he observed in others, both from history and his contemporaries. He saw the thoughtful emulation of virtuous figures as an essential way to internalize their strengths, wisdom, and virtues. For him and other Stoic philosophers, wisdom wasn't merely theoretical knowledge to be studied in books, but a practical guide for living well that could be best understood and integrated through observing those who had successfully applied these principles in their own lives. In the context of Stoicism, choosing whom to emulate becomes a deliberate and thoughtful process focused on recognizing those individuals who embody the core Stoic virtues of wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. These role models might be historical figures whose lives and writings demonstrate exceptional character, contemporary individuals whose actions inspire you, or even fictional characters from literature and stories who exemplify qualities such as resilience, ethical integrity, rational thinking, and moral courage. The key is to actively seek out individuals whose lives provide a clear roadmap for facing challenges with grace, making decisions based on principles rather than convenience, and maintaining their integrity under pressure. Look for people who demonstrate the ability to remain calm in crisis, show compassion without being naive, pursue their goals with determination while remaining flexible about methods, and treat others with respect regardless of status or circumstances. Applying this principle in today's world involves a thoughtful, intentional selection of role models whose values genuinely align with your aspirations and whose character you genuinely respect. This goes far beyond simple admiration or surface-level inspiration. It requires critically observing how these individuals navigate their lives, make important decisions, handle adversity and success, interact with others, and maintain their principles under various pressures. This practice encourages you to ask probing questions about the people you choose to emulate. What specific aspects of this person's approach or mindset can I meaningfully incorporate into my own life to improve my conduct and choices? How do they handle situations similar to ones I face? What principles guide their decision-making process? How do they maintain their composure and effectiveness under pressure? What daily practices or habits contribute to their character? Moreover, Emulating wise individuals helps bridge the often significant gap between abstract philosophical concepts and concrete everyday actions. It provides tangible, real-world examples of how Stoic principles can be lived out authentically and effectively. This not only makes these ideals more accessible and understandable, but also more compelling and inspiring as you witness the tangible impact of Stoic virtues in the lives of people you respect. The practice of seeking out and consciously emulating wise people represents a dynamic, proactive form of learning and self-improvement. Rather than passively hoping to improve over time, you're actively studying excellence and deliberately incorporating the best practices of others into your own life. This approach sets a high standard for your own behavior and decisions, creating a positive pressure that propels you toward becoming the kind of wise, virtuous individual you seek to emulate. By surrounding yourself mentally and emotionally with the influence of virtuous individuals, through their writings, their examples, their approaches to life's challenges, you create an environment that supports and encourages your own growth and development. This influence gradually shapes your thinking, decision-making, and character in positive directions. The Stoic practice of daily reflection, as exemplified by Marcus Aurelius in his personal meditations, represents far more than simply recounting the events of your day or keeping a basic journal. This practice involves a profound and honest reflective examination of your thoughts, actions, motivations, and responses throughout the day, with the specific goal of discerning whether these behaviors aligned with your values and the Stoic virtues of wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation. This introspective process serves as a crucial feedback loop that helps you become increasingly conscious and intentional about your actions and decisions. Rather than moving through life on autopilot or being driven primarily by habits and impulses, daily reflection creates space for genuine self-awareness and conscious growth. For Stoics, the primary purpose of this daily review isn't to dwell obsessively on mistakes, engage in harsh self-criticism, or indulge in regret about past actions. Instead, it's about observing your patterns with compassion and objectivity, then making conscious adjustments based on what you learn. It's about extracting wisdom from each day's experiences and using that knowledge to refine yourself continuously and gradually. Marcus Aurelius used this technique not only as a way to ensure that he was fulfilling his duties as an emperor, but also as a method for growing as a philosopher and human being. His famous Meditations are essentially a record of this daily practice, showing how he worked through challenges, reminded himself of important principles, and held himself accountable to his highest ideals. Incorporating this practice into modern life can prove incredibly beneficial for personal growth and emotional well-being. Have you ever felt so consumed by anger that you completely lost control of yourself when someone said or did something that wounded you deeply? Are there days when even a casual glance or an offhand comment feels like the entire world is turning its back on you, leaving you isolated and hurt? In today's relentlessly fast-paced, high-pressure world, it's remarkably easy to get caught in an overwhelming whirlwind of negative emotions, from minor daily annoyances that chip away at our peace, to devastating waves of anger that seem to consume everything in their path. But is there truly a way to remain unshaken, to prevent anyone from disturbing the sanctuary of your inner peace? Can we genuinely live a calm, untroubled life that remains free from the emotional grip that others so often seem to have over us? These questions have plagued humanity for millennia, Yet the answers lie in an ancient yet profoundly powerful school of thought that has weathered every storm of human experience. Stoicism, with its deep roots in ancient philosophy and its remarkably practical applications, offers profound and timeless answers to these universal human struggles. Philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, the emperor philosopher who ruled Rome while maintaining his inner tranquility, Epictetus, who rose from slavery to become one of history's greatest teachers of freedom, and Seneca, who navigated the treacherous waters of political power while preserving his moral compass, all endured harsh times that would break most people. Yet they maintained an unshakable inner tranquility through the transformative wisdom of Stoic philosophy. Today, we'll explore 7 fundamental methods that go beyond mere theoretical understanding to provide practical tools for not only mastering your emotions, but taking complete control of your soul's well-being. What I'm about to share isn't mere academic theory divorced from real-world application. It's drawn from the profound lessons of Stoicism, distilled into actionable insights that have been tested by centuries of human experience and refined by countless individuals who have found genuine peace through these practices. These methods represent a comprehensive approach to emotional mastery that addresses every aspect of how we interact with the world around us. From learning to embrace life's inevitable challenges to discovering the profound joy that comes from selfless service to others, each principle builds upon the previous one, creating a foundation for unshakable inner peace that no external circumstance can disturb. The first and perhaps most fundamental principle that leads to lasting inner peace is the wholehearted acceptance of everything that life brings our way. This concept goes far deeper than passive resignation or simply tolerating unpleasant circumstances. True acceptance, as understood by the Stoics, doesn't mean we must enjoy or agree with every situation we encounter, but rather that we learn to face them willingly, without the internal resistance that creates so much of our suffering. Marcus Aurelius, writing in his personal meditations during the most challenging periods of his reign, captured this beautifully when he wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart." This acceptance forms the bedrock foundation for escaping the vicious cycle of anger and frustration that traps so many people in patterns of emotional reactivity. Consider the simple example of washing dishes, a mundane chore that most people approach with reluctance and annoyance. If you approach this task with internal resistance, fighting against the reality that the dishes need to be cleaned, every plate you touch becomes an internal battle between what you want to be doing and what you actually have to do. Your mind generates story after story about how unfair it is, how you shouldn't have to do this, or how much you'd rather be doing something else. But if you approach the same task willingly, perhaps even with gratitude for having dishes to wash and food to have eaten from them, something remarkable happens. The burden melts away completely. Epictetus, who understood suffering intimately through his years of slavery, reminds us in his discourses, "Do not seek to have events happen as you want them to, but instead want them to happen as they do, and your life will go well." This is the essence of willingness, not resisting life's flow, but learning to move harmoniously with it, like a skilled dancer who follows the music rather than fighting against the rhythm. In practical terms, this mindset can be applied even to the most unpleasant situations we encounter. Take, for instance, being stuck in heavy traffic when you're already running late for an important appointment. If you spend the entire time fuming over the delays, cursing other drivers, and imagining worst-case scenarios about the consequences of your lateness, your frustration only grows exponentially. Your blood pressure rises, your mood deteriorates, and you arrive at your destination already exhausted and irritated, regardless of whether you were actually late or not. However, if you choose to see this unexpected delay as an opportunity, perhaps to listen to a favorite podcast you never have time for, to practice deep breathing exercises, or to simply reflect on your day and set intentions for the meeting ahead, something transformative happens. The tension that would have consumed you simply dissipates. The traffic becomes just traffic, not a personal attack on your schedule or evidence that the universe is conspiring against you. When we learn to accept situations willingly rather than fighting against them, stress loses its grip on us entirely. This doesn't mean becoming passive or failing to take appropriate action when action is needed. Rather, it means approaching necessary actions from a place of calm acceptance rather than frantic resistance. A crucial aspect of developing willingness involves how we define our fundamental purpose in life. Instead of chasing trivial, ego-driven goals that ultimately leave us empty and constantly comparing ourselves to others, we can aim for a broader, more meaningful vision that encompasses our entire existence. Ask yourself with complete honesty, what is my true vision for my life? What kind of person do I want to become? What kind of impact do I want to have on the world around me? Unlike narrow personal ambitions that often lead to temporary achievements like earning more money, acquiring more possessions, or gaining recognition and status, a genuine life vision encompasses your entire being and connects you to something larger than yourself. When you're living with this kind of grand vision, every action becomes voluntary because you understand at a deep level that everything that happens, both the pleasant and unpleasant experiences, contributes meaningfully to your journey of growth and service. By embracing the natural flow of life instead of constantly resisting it, you gain access to a profound sense of freedom and inner peace that no external circumstance can touch. Consider the difference between feeling compelled to do something versus volunteering to do it. When you're forced to meet a work deadline under pressure and resentment, the task often feels heavy, tedious, and draining. But when you volunteer for a meaningful cause or help a friend out of genuine goodwill, even challenging and unrewarding tasks feel fulfilling and energizing. The fundamental difference lies entirely in your attitude and the framework through which you approach the situation. Voluntary actions stem from an internal sense of control and choice, transforming "I choose to do this" into a source of empowerment and meaning, while "I have to do this" becomes a mental prison that drains your energy and enthusiasm. Apply this perspective transformation to your daily interactions with difficult people. When someone says something offensive or hurtful to you, you face a crucial choice that will determine not only your immediate emotional state, but also your long-term patterns of response. You can either let their words dictate your emotions and react with anger, defensiveness, or hurt, thereby giving them complete control over your inner world, or you can view this interaction as a valuable opportunity to practice willingness and emotional sovereignty. You might tell yourself something like, "This person is acting according to their current level of understanding and emotional state, but I choose not to let their words disturb my inner peace. Their behavior reflects their internal world, not my worth or value as a person." This shift in perspective doesn't mean condoning inappropriate behavior or failing to set healthy boundaries when necessary. Rather, it means maintaining your emotional equilibrium regardless of how others choose to behave. Accepting life as it unfolds doesn't mean abandoning all efforts to improve yourself, your circumstances, or the world around you. Instead, it's about recognizing with clear-eyed wisdom that some things are entirely beyond your control. And this recognition actually empowers you to focus your precious energy and attention on the areas where you can make a real difference. For instance, if you face harsh criticism at work, you can choose to see it as a valuable chance to learn and grow rather than taking it as a personal attack on your character or abilities. Your reaction to the criticism, not the criticism itself, determines whether this experience becomes a source of suffering or a catalyst for improvement. When you approach challenges from this perspective of willing acceptance, you discover that you have far more power and freedom than you ever imagined possible. Embracing willingness is undoubtedly a journey rather than an overnight transformation. The patterns of resistance and reactivity that most people develop over years or decades don't disappear immediately. Start with small steps and be patient with yourself as you develop this new way of being. Practice accepting your own mistakes without harsh self-judgment, viewing daily challenges as opportunities for growth rather than obstacles to your happiness, and approaching minor inconveniences with grace and humor rather than irritation and complaint. As you master this fundamental mindset shift, you'll find that you become naturally less prone to anger and external disturbances. Instead of being at the mercy of circumstances and other people's behavior, you'll discover a resilient inner strength that enables you to live life on your own terms, guided by your values and vision rather than blown about by every wind of circumstance. One of the most profound insights you'll gain from developing willingness is understanding why we so easily feel anger, irritation, or frustration toward others. Could it be that much of our emotional reactivity stems from our tendency to constantly judge other people's actions, words, and choices? Think carefully about this. How many times throughout a typical day do you catch yourself thinking thoughts like, "This person is so annoying," "That driver is completely irresponsible," or "They're being totally unreasonable"? These automatic judgments, while they might seem harmless or even justified, not only potentially hurt others through the energy we project, but more importantly for our own well-being, they place an enormous emotional burden on our souls. In Stoic philosophy, learning to let go of judgment represents one of the most powerful methods available for freeing ourselves from negative emotions like anger, resentment, and frustration. Human beings naturally view the world through the lens of their personal experiences, values, and expectations. When someone acts in a way that contradicts our expectations or challenges our preferred way of doing things, we immediately tend to label them with judgments that often say more about us than about them. For instance, if someone drives slowly in front of you when you're trying to get somewhere quickly, your first automatic thought might be, "They're so inconsiderate," or "What a terrible driver." But have you ever paused to consider the full context of their situation? They might be a new driver who's still building confidence behind the wheel. Or perhaps they're driving carefully because they have precious cargo, maybe elderly parents or young children, in the car with them. Maybe they're dealing with car trouble, following GPS directions in an unfamiliar area, or simply choosing to drive more cautiously because they've recently been in an accident. The fundamental truth that Stoicism teaches us is that external events themselves don't determine our emotions. The way we interpret and judge those events does. When we place judgments on others' actions, We're essentially volunteering to carry an unnecessary emotional weight that serves no constructive purpose and often prevents us from seeing situations clearly and responding wisely. Judgment isn't merely a passing thought that we can easily dismiss. It often becomes the root system from which anger, resentment, and ongoing conflict grow. Imagine you have a colleague who frequently arrives late to work or important meetings. If you immediately judge them as lazy, irresponsible, or disrespectful, your irritation and frustration will likely grow day by day, creating an ongoing source of stress and negativity in your work environment. However, if you practice suspending judgment and instead consider that they might be dealing with challenges you're unaware of, perhaps caring for a sick family member, managing a difficult commute, or struggling with health issues, your perspective naturally softens. This doesn't mean you condone chronic lateness or fail to address problems when they genuinely affect your work. Rather, it means you approach the situation from a place of curiosity and understanding rather than automatic condemnation. This shift protects you from unnecessary negative emotions while simultaneously opening the door to more effective communication and problem solving. When you're not emotionally charged with judgment and resentment, you're much more likely to have productive conversations and find workable solutions. Stoicism doesn't teach us to ignore genuine problems or become doormats who accept any behavior without question. Instead, it teaches us to see situations more clearly by removing the distorting lens of automatic judgment. As Marcus Aurelius wisely wrote, "You always own the option of having no opinion. There is never any need to get worked up or to trouble your soul about things you can't control." This insight reveals something profound about human nature. No one is entirely good or entirely bad. People are complex beings whose actions are shaped by their circumstances, their history, their current stress levels, their understanding, and countless factors that remain invisible to outside observers. Reflect on times when you didn't act your best, perhaps when you were exhausted, overwhelmed, grieving, or dealing with personal challenges. In those moments, would you have wanted others to judge you harshly based on your temporary behavior, or would you have preferred understanding and compassion? Similarly, the actions of others rarely represent fixed character traits, but rather temporary expressions influenced by factors we may never know about. In supportive, understanding environments, even people who seem difficult can demonstrate remarkable kindness and cooperation. Conversely, under sufficient pressure or stress, anyone can behave in ways that seem uncharacteristic or problematic. Picture yourself at a restaurant where a server accidentally spills water on your table. Your immediate reaction might be irritation. "They're so careless," or "how unprofessional." But if you pause and consider that they might be having an exceptionally difficult day, dealing with personal problems, or simply making a human mistake that anyone could make, you'll likely feel much lighter and more compassionate. This is the transformative power of releasing judgment. It not only frees you from unnecessary emotional discomfort, but also fosters deeper empathy and connection with those around you. To be absolutely clear, letting go of judgment doesn't mean condoning harmful behavior, failing to protect yourself from mistreatment, or avoiding necessary conversations about problematic actions. It means refusing to let others' behavior dictate your emotional state and internal experience. You can still discern right from wrong, set appropriate boundaries, and take necessary action without allowing negativity to consume your mental and emotional energy. As Marcus Aurelius also observed, The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. The most powerful response to harmful behavior is not anger, retaliation, or endless rumination about how wrong the other person was, but rather maintaining your own composure, dignity, and commitment to your values, regardless of how others choose to behave. How can you begin practicing non-judgment in your daily life? The first and most crucial step is developing awareness of your automatic judgmental thoughts. Each time you catch yourself making a snap judgment about someone, pause and ask yourself, is this thought necessary? Does it serve any constructive purpose? Is it helping me respond more effectively to this situation? Then, make a conscious effort to shift your perspective by putting yourself in their shoes and considering what they might be experiencing that you don't know about. Finally, remember that everyone is different, and these differences are what make life rich, interesting, and full of opportunities for learning and growth. Someone being unlike you doesn't make them wrong, and their different approach to life isn't worth sacrificing your emotional energy and peace of mind. Letting go of judgment ultimately means letting go of unnecessary emotional burdens that serve no useful purpose. It's learning to set yourself free from the exhausting cycle of constantly evaluating and condemning others' actions. The next time someone irritates you or behaves in a way that challenges your preferences, pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself honestly, is this feeling worth it? Is holding on to this judgment serving any positive purpose? You'll discover that by viewing situations with empathy and understanding rather than automatic judgment, you're not only kinder and more compassionate toward others, but also much kinder to yourself. You'll find that life becomes significantly lighter and more enjoyable when you're not constantly carrying the weight of judgments about everyone around you. Ultimately, ask yourself this fundamental question. Do you want to hold on to anger, resentment, and constant judgment? Or do you want to live a life of genuine freedom and inner peace? The choice, as the Stoics remind us, is always entirely yours to make. When you begin to release the habit of judging others, you naturally uncover a profound truth that lies at the heart of much human suffering. A significant portion of our frustration and anger stems from our unconscious expectation that others should act according to our desires, preferences, and standards. Yet the world simply doesn't operate according to our personal wishes and demands. People, with all their beautiful complexity and unpredictability, act based on their own reasons, motivations, and understanding, often in ways that remain completely beyond our comprehension or control. This realization leads us to examine a fundamental question that can transform how we approach every relationship and interaction. Do we truly need to control everything around us in order to find peace and happiness? Or does genuine peace actually come from learning to let go of our need to control outcomes and other people's behavior? This question strikes at the very core of Stoic philosophy. Rather than wasting precious energy trying to change things that are fundamentally beyond our control, Stoicism teaches us to accept what we cannot change and thereby free ourselves from unnecessary burdens and suffering. While we can certainly influence external events through our actions and choices, we must accept the liberating truth that we cannot control them entirely. Imagine you're driving during rush hour traffic. Cars are backed up for miles. Horns are blaring from all directions, and you're rapidly approaching the time when you'll be late for an important appointment. Anger and frustration rise as you think thoughts like, "Why do people drive like this?" Or, Why can't traffic ever improve when I need it to? But the stark reality is that you cannot change how other drivers behave, make the roads suddenly clear, or control the countless factors that contribute to traffic congestion. The only thing you have genuine control over is your own mindset and reaction to the situation. You can choose to become increasingly upset, allowing your blood pressure to rise and your mood to deteriorate, or you can take a deep breath, accept that some things are simply outside your sphere of influence, and perhaps use the unexpected time to listen to music, practice gratitude, or prepare mentally for your upcoming meeting. This might sound deceptively simple, but learning to let go of the compulsive need for control can literally transform every aspect of your life. A mother may constantly worry about her child's grades and academic performance, but she cannot take their tests for them, absorb the information into their brain, or force success to happen through sheer willpower. An employee might feel frustrated by their boss's seemingly unreasonable decisions, yet they cannot control their supervisor's thoughts, priorities, or management style. Negative emotions most often arise when we place high expectations on outcomes that are determined by countless external factors beyond our power. When reality inevitably falls short of these unrealistic expectations, disappointment, frustration, and resentment naturally follow. We set ourselves up for suffering by tying our happiness and peace of mind to things we cannot control. Consider the story of a passionate young entrepreneur who spent several years building a technology company, hoping to revolutionize an entire industry through innovation and hard work. However, when the product finally launched, market feedback was deeply disappointing. Sales were sluggish, customers didn't understand the value proposition, and competitors seemed to gain traction more easily. Initially, the entrepreneur's response was to become increasingly frustrated and bitter. He blamed customers for not understanding the obvious value of his product, suspected competitors of engaging in unfair practices, and convinced himself that the market was simply too ignorant to appreciate true innovation. These emotions trapped him in a cycle of bitterness and helplessness that made it impossible to think clearly or adapt effectively. During a conversation with a mentor who understood Stoic principles, he was encouraged to focus on what he could actually improve instead of fixating on uncontrollable factors like market conditions, competitor actions, or customer preferences. This fundamental shift in perspective opened an entirely new way of approaching the challenges. Instead of blaming external factors, he began asking different questions. What aspects of the product could be improved based on customer feedback? How could the marketing message be clarified to better communicate value? What partnerships or distribution channels might be worth exploring? By letting go of what was beyond his control and focusing intensely on areas where he could make a real difference, he felt lighter, more creative, and significantly more effective. Eventually, this shift in approach led to breakthrough improvements in the product, a more effective marketing strategy, and ultimately greater success than he had originally envisioned. The key was learning to channel his energy toward what he could control, rather than depleting it by fighting against unchangeable circumstances. Stoicism not only reshapes how we perceive and respond to challenges, but also provides us with practical tools for maintaining emotional equilibrium. During stressful moments, we can ask ourselves powerful questions. Is this situation within my control? Am I wasting energy fighting against unchangeable factors? Is my current reaction improving the situation or making it worse? Are my expectations realistic given what I can actually influence? These simple questions serve as powerful tools for redirecting our attention from futile resistance toward constructive action. They help us quickly distinguish between what deserves our energy and what we should simply accept and move beyond. Letting go of control doesn't mean surrendering our agency or becoming passive observers of our own lives. It requires focusing intensely on what we can truly influence: our thoughts, emotions, actions, choices, and responses to events. The distinction is crucial. We become more effective and powerful when we stop dissipating our energy on uncontrollable factors and instead concentrate it where it can actually make a difference. Picture yourself rowing a boat down a river with a strong current. You cannot stop the water from flowing or eliminate all the obstacles in the river, but you can steer your boat skillfully to navigate the current effectively and reach your destination. Fighting against the river's natural flow would be exhausting and counterproductive, but working with it while maintaining control over your vessel allows you to make steady progress. A practical Stoic exercise for developing this mindset is called premeditatio malorum, the practice of anticipating potential adversity before it occurs. Before starting your day, take a few moments to imagine what might go wrong: plans getting cancelled, colleagues making mistakes, unexpected delays, or challenging weather conditions. By mentally preparing for these scenarios ahead of time, you make them much easier to accept and respond to effectively when they actually happen. This practice isn't about becoming pessimistic or expecting the worst possible outcomes. Rather, it's about building mental resilience and emotional flexibility so that you're not caught completely off guard when life doesn't go according to plan. When you've already considered how you might respond to various challenges, you're much more likely to remain calm and composed when they actually occur. Ultimately, letting go of the need to control everything is not a sign of weakness, defeat, or resignation. It's a powerful form of liberation that frees you to focus your energy where it can actually make a positive difference. When you stop clinging desperately to outcomes that depend on factors beyond your influence, you'll experience an extraordinary sense of inner peace and freedom. Start small and be patient with yourself as you develop this new way of thinking and responding. Don't try to change other people's opinions about you. Avoid dwelling on past mistakes that cannot be undone, and resist the urge to hold on to expectations about how things should unfold. Remember that life flows like a river, and when you learn to move skillfully with its current rather than exhausting yourself by fighting against it, you'll discover the lasting peace you've been seeking. As you practice releasing control over uncontrollable factors, you'll begin to embrace another fundamental aspect of Stoic wisdom: accepting that imperfection is not a flaw in the fabric of existence, but rather its very essence. In life, none of us can avoid moments of frustration, disappointment, or even anger when others don't behave according to our expectations and preferences. But have you ever deeply questioned why we expect perfection from the world and the people around us in the first place? Stoicism teaches that our demand for perfection is fundamentally an illusion, and clinging to this illusion becomes the root of enormous suffering. Understanding and accepting that imperfection is woven into the very nature of existence represents the crucial first step toward freeing yourself from the negative emotions that arise when reality fails to match your idealized expectations. Think honestly about your recent experiences. Have you felt disappointed because a colleague didn't complete their assigned tasks with the level of care and attention you would have given them, thereby affecting your own work? Have you felt upset when a friend broke a promise they had made to you? Have you experienced hurt when a family member said something thoughtless or insensitive that wounded your feelings? Such situations are not anomalies or signs that something is fundamentally wrong with the world. They are simply part of the normal human experience. But is it realistic to expect everyone around you to be flawless in their actions, perfect in their communication, and entirely consistent in their behavior? Epictetus reminds us with profound simplicity, it is not events that disturb people, it is their judgments concerning them. This insight reveals that anger and frustration don't actually stem from others' imperfect actions, but rather from how we choose to interpret and respond to those actions. The chaotic, imperfect world doesn't need to change to accommodate your preferences in order for you to find peace and contentment. What needs to change is how you perceive and relate to imperfection when you encounter it. Consider a specific example that many people can relate to. Imagine you've prepared meticulously for an important presentation at work, spending hours researching, organizing your thoughts, and creating supporting materials. However, at the last minute, a colleague who was responsible for providing crucial supporting data makes significant mistakes or omissions that seem to undermine all your careful preparation. Your initial frustration is completely natural and understandable. You might think, why were they so careless when I put so much effort into this? But when viewed through the lens of Stoic wisdom, you'll recognize that their mistake, while inconvenient, is completely beyond your control. Getting angry about it only worsens the situation and clouds your ability to think clearly about solutions. Instead of wasting precious mental and emotional energy blaming them or ruminating about their carelessness, you could ask yourself a more productive question. What can I do right now to salvage this presentation and move forward effectively? By accepting the imperfection of the situation rather than fighting against it, you not only maintain your emotional equilibrium, but also position yourself to find creative solutions more quickly and effectively. Stoicism places enormous emphasis on focusing exclusively on what lies within your sphere of control and influence. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his personal meditations, "Begin each day by telling yourself, 'Today I shall meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness, all of them due to the offender's ignorance of what is good or evil.'" Starting your day with the realistic expectation that you'll encounter imperfection, inconsideration, and human fallibility prepares you mentally and emotionally to face these challenges with resilience and grace. This isn't pessimism or negative thinking, it's practical realism that allows you to navigate difficulties with a steady, unshaken mind, because you're not surprised or thrown off balance when imperfection appears. In everyday moments, embracing imperfection can completely transform your emotional reactions and overall quality of life. When someone breaks a promise or fails to follow through on a commitment, instead of automatically responding with anger or feelings of betrayal, remind yourself that they are human and might be dealing with unseen struggles, changing circumstances, or simply different priorities than you assumed they had. If you feel misunderstood or misinterpreted in a conversation, stay calm and seek clarity rather than jumping immediately to negative conclusions about the other person's intentions. Perhaps they didn't mean to hurt your feelings, but simply didn't understand your perspective, or were distracted by their own concerns when they spoke. When faced with rudeness, criticism, or inconsiderate behavior from others, ask yourself honestly, does this truly harm me in any meaningful way, or is it primarily my interpretation and expectations that are making me feel hurt? Often you'll discover that the actual impact of others' imperfect behavior is far less significant than the emotional story you've created about what their behavior means. Accepting imperfection doesn't mean giving up on personal growth, abandoning your efforts to improve yourself, or lowering your standards for how you treat others. On the contrary, it liberates you from the exhausting burden of constantly demanding that others meet your expectations. When you stop requiring that others act exactly as you wish they would, you free yourself from perpetual disappointment and can focus your energy on what truly matters. For example, in romantic relationships, we often expect our partner to understand us perfectly, anticipate our needs, and respond to situations exactly as we would. But the truth is that even people who love you deeply cannot always read your emotions accurately or respond in precisely the way you hope they will. Instead of blaming them for not being mind readers, ask yourself, can I communicate my needs more clearly to foster better understanding between us? This approach not only reduces relationship conflict and dissatisfaction, but also builds genuine empathy and deeper connection. When you truly accept that your partner, like all humans, is imperfect and learning as they go, you create space for compassion, growth, and authentic intimacy rather than constant judgment and criticism. When you genuinely accept the world's inherent imperfections, something beautiful happens. You begin to find unexpected joy and meaning in its flaws and inconsistencies. A careless co-worker becomes an opportunity to practice patience and understanding. An inconsiderate friend becomes a chance to develop your capacity for compassion and forgiveness. Even a rude stranger becomes a moment to demonstrate grace under pressure and maintain your inner peace, regardless of how others choose to behave. Ask yourself with complete honesty, have I ever made mistakes that inconvenienced or hurt others? If I want understanding and forgiveness from others when I fall short, why can't I extend that same understanding and forgiveness to them? This perspective reminds you that everyone, including yourself, is simply doing their best with their current level of awareness, understanding, and capacity. As Seneca wrote with profound insight, "He who is brave is free." The courage to face imperfection without being derailed by it is not just a sign of compassion toward others, but a pathway to genuine inner freedom. Life doesn't have to be perfect for you to find deep happiness and contentment within it. When you stop expecting perfection from others and from the world around you, you release yourself from the impossible burden of constant disappointment and frustration. Marcus Aurelius captured this beautifully when he wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." By allowing thoughts of acceptance, understanding and compassion to guide your responses to imperfection, you'll discover lasting peace even amid the chaos and unpredictability that characterize human existence. This isn't about compromising your values or accepting harmful behavior without question. It's about mastering the art of living skillfully in an imperfect world while maintaining your inner tranquility and dignity, regardless of what happens around you. When we truly learn to accept the inevitable imperfections of the world around us, a new door opens, a door that leads us inward to examine our own inner landscape and emotional responses. The world may indeed be chaotic, people may consistently fall short of our expectations, and circumstances may rarely unfold exactly as we planned or hoped they would. But must these external realities necessarily disturb our inner peace and emotional equilibrium? Accepting external imperfections represents an important first step, but the more profound and transformative challenge lies in learning to take complete responsibility for our own emotions, regardless of what circumstances or other people's behavior we encounter. This brings us face to face with a fundamental question that can revolutionize how we experience life. Who is truly responsible for your emotions? You, or the circumstances and people beyond your control? Stoicism compels us to confront this truth with unflinching honesty and courage. While it may be easier and more comfortable to believe that our emotions are caused by external events, taking full responsibility for our inner experience is the key to genuine freedom and lasting peace. Imagine standing in a long line at the supermarket on a busy weekend. The store is crowded, tensions are high, and people around you seem impatient and irritated. Suddenly, someone cuts directly in front of you without so much as an apology, acknowledgement, or even a glance in your direction. In that moment, irritation naturally rises. You feel disrespected, treated unfairly, and perhaps angry at their obvious rudeness and inconsideration. You could respond by voicing your anger loudly enough for others to hear, grumbling under your breath about inconsiderate people, or carrying that resentment and negative energy with you for the rest of the day, allowing it to color every subsequent interaction. But there is another choice available to you, one that requires courage and conscious effort, but leads to genuine freedom. You can pause in that moment and ask yourself with complete honesty, is this person's thoughtless action truly worth sacrificing my peace of mind? They may indeed be wrong in their behavior, but my emotions belong to me. Why should I allow their momentary inconsideration to dictate how I feel for the next several hours? If you consciously choose calmness over reactivity, something remarkable and transformative happens. The initial irritation naturally fades away, like a wave receding from the shore. The person who cut in line might remain completely oblivious to their rudeness and its impact on others, but their actions no longer hold any power over your emotional state unless you specifically choose to give them that power. The line might be slightly longer now, but your inner peace remains completely intact. What could have become a major source of stress and negative emotion becomes just another minor, forgettable moment in your day, rather than the spark that ignites a cascade of ongoing frustration and resentment. When you reclaim complete control and responsibility for your emotions in this way, life becomes significantly lighter and more enjoyable. You're no longer at the mercy of every thoughtless driver, rude stranger, or inconsiderate colleague you encounter throughout your day. In our daily lives, we often unconsciously hand complete control of our emotions to other people without even realizing we're doing it. When someone insults us, criticizes our work, or simply ignores us when we're trying to communicate, the instinctive response is often to feel hurt, angry, or dejected. But ask yourself this crucial question: why should another person's words, opinions, or actions have the power to dictate your mood and emotional state? Marcus Aurelius, who as Emperor of Rome dealt with constant criticism, political pressure, and personal attacks, wisely observed, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." His words remind us of a profound truth that most people never fully grasp. While we cannot control how others behave toward us, we always retain complete choice over how we respond to their behavior. Consider a time when you were unfairly criticized at work, perhaps in front of colleagues or clients. Anger and frustration may have felt inevitable and completely justified. After all, the criticism was unfair and the delivery was inappropriate. But what if, in that moment, you had reminded yourself that your worth and value as a person are not determined by one person's opinion or feedback? By consciously reframing your reaction and refusing to internalize their criticism as a reflection of your true worth, you would have freed yourself from their influence over your emotional state. This doesn't mean ignoring potentially valuable feedback or failing to address legitimate concerns. Imagine living in a state of complete serenity where no harsh word, no adversity, not even the chaos swirling around you could truly reach and disturb your inner core. This is the central objective of Stoicism, transforming your mind into an impenetrable fortress that remains unshaken regardless of external circumstances. This philosophy isn't about hiding from the world or avoiding problems entirely, but rather about facing them with unwavering courage and profound wisdom without being fundamentally shaken by their impact. After all, the external world can never have power over you if your mind has been properly fortified and trained. How many times have you lost your peace over something relatively small and insignificant? How often have you allowed the actions, words, or behaviors of other people to steal your happiness and derail your emotional equilibrium? The truth that Stoicism reveals is that reacting impulsively to external events only weakens us and diminishes our personal power. When you choose not to be affected by circumstances beyond your control, you discover the true power that lies in mastering your emotions and governing your actions with intention rather than reactivity. As the great Stoic philosophers taught through centuries of wisdom and practical application, it's not what happens to you that determines your experience of life, but how you choose to interpret and respond to what happens. This fundamental shift in perspective transforms everything. Being unshakable is both an art that you can systematically learn and a mental muscle that you can deliberately strengthen through consistent practice and application of timeless principles. The greatest battle you face in life is not occurring in the external world with its endless challenges and obstacles, but rather within the landscape of your own mind. We often become our own harshest critics, allowing uncontrolled thoughts and overwhelming emotions to dominate our mental space and steal our inner peace. Stoicism teaches us that the origin of most suffering rarely lies in the events themselves, but in the interpretations and meanings we assign to those events. As Epictetus wisely observed, it is not things that disturb us, but the judgments we make about those things. With this perspective, we begin to understand that by fundamentally changing how we interpret the world around us, we can construct an invisible shield against any adversity that life might present to us. Think about a recent situation that left you feeling shaken or disturbed. Perhaps it was unfair criticism at work that seemed to attack your competence, a negative comment on social media that felt personally targeted, or a heated argument with someone close to you that left you feeling misunderstood and hurt. What was your initial reaction to these situations? Most likely, there was an immediate flood of automatic thoughts. Why are they doing this to me? Or, I don't deserve to be treated this way. Or, how could they be so unfair? This cascade of reactive thoughts is natural and universal, but it's not something we have to be enslaved by. We can learn to recognize these patterns and take control of them before they consume our mental and emotional resources. The construction of your invisible shield begins precisely here, with the conscious awareness that you are the guardian and protector of your own mind. This shield isn't something that appears overnight through wishful thinking or positive affirmations alone. It must be forged through the daily practice of challenging automatic thoughts and consistently asking yourself, does this situation truly deserve my attention and emotional investment? For example, if someone insults or criticizes you unfairly, you have two fundamental choices. You can absorb their words and allow yourself to be wounded by them, or you can recognize that words only have the power that you choose to give them. The insult itself is merely empty noise, unless you permit it to enter and take residence in your mental fortress. The Stoics also teach us the crucial practice of separating what is within our control from what lies beyond our influence. Your reaction to any event is completely within your control. The event itself is not. When you truly accept this distinction, you realize that you can choose peace and equilibrium even in the midst of chaos and conflict. Imagine developing a shield that not only blocks external attacks, but reflects them back as if they had never occurred in the first place. This shield represents your capacity to consciously decide what enters your mind and what is rejected at the threshold. Practice not identifying completely with your own thoughts and emotions. Many times we mistakenly believe that we are our thoughts, which can lead us to act impulsively and reactively. In reality, you are not the thoughts that arise in your consciousness, but rather the observer who stands behind them, watching with awareness and making conscious choices about how to respond. When you observe your thoughts with curiosity rather than automatic judgment, you create space to choose how to respond, rather than simply reacting based on impulse. This awareness is empowering and represents an essential part of Stoic training for mental resilience. To apply this lesson practically in your daily life, begin today by reflecting on situations that would normally steal your peace and emotional balance. When a problem arises, ask yourself, is this within my control? Does this thought or emotion reflect objective reality, or is it simply my interpretation of the situation? This constant self-analysis and reflection is what strengthens your invisible shield and makes you increasingly resistant to the storms and challenges of life. Eventually, you'll realize that the greatest enemy is not what happens to you, but what you believe about what happens to you. Being unshakable doesn't mean denying emotions or avoiding problems entirely. It means being fully conscious that you have the power to remain unaffected by anything that you don't consciously permit to disturb your inner sanctuary. Responding with silence is one of the most underestimated yet powerful strategies you can adopt in your daily interactions and relationships. In our current society, we are constantly encouraged to react immediately to everything, whether through social media, where every opinion seems to demand an instant response, or in our personal relationships, where the impulse to have the last word often dominates our interactions. But what if you could choose not to react? What if, instead of feeling compelled to respond to every provocation, you could opt for silence as a form of strength rather than weakness? Stoicism teaches us that not reacting is actually a conscious act of self-control and personal sovereignty. Imagine someone insulting you in public. The natural reaction for many people would be to insult back, raise their voice in defense, or justify their position aggressively. However, when you react in these ways, you essentially hand over emotional control to the other person. When you choose silence instead, you demonstrate that you, not their provocation, dictate your actions and responses. It's a way of saying without words, I am not a puppet dancing to your provocations. Marcus Aurelius reminds us in his Meditations, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This strength lies precisely in maintaining control over your responses rather than being reactive to external circumstances. Silence is not merely the absence of words, but rather a space where you can observe, process, and consciously decide how, or if, it's worth responding to a particular situation. Therefore, choosing silence means gaining valuable time to think clearly, time to observe your own emotions without being overwhelmed by them, and time to avoid impulsive responses that are often guided by anger, frustration, or wounded pride. Silence can completely disarm the other person in a conflict. When someone expects a reaction, whether anger, defensiveness, or counterattack, and doesn't receive what they anticipated, it's like throwing cold water on a fire. Silence breaks the cycle of aggression and hostility. It transforms what could have been an escalating argument into a moment of reflection for both parties involved. Perhaps the other person, not receiving the expected reaction, will realize that their behavior is inappropriate or counterproductive. And if they don't reach this realization, it doesn't matter. You have maintained your peace and dignity. However, mastering silence doesn't mean fleeing from necessary confrontations or avoiding legitimate responsibilities. There are certainly moments when speaking up is essential, when silence might be misinterpreted as indifference, agreement, or lack of care. Nevertheless, even in these moments when verbal response is necessary, silence before speaking is invaluable. It allows you to formulate a thoughtful, measured response that aligns with your values and objectives, rather than simply reacting to the emotion of the moment. In practice, mastering silence requires deliberate training and conscious effort. The next time you feel the urge to react immediately, whether to a rude comment, a deliberate provocation, or an irritating situation, make a conscious pause. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, will this response actually contribute something valuable? Will it improve the situation, or will it simply intensify the problem and create more conflict? In many cases, you'll discover that the best response is no response at all. Remember also that silence is not only a tool for managing conflict situations, but also a powerful way to connect with yourself on a deeper level. External quietude, as well as internal stillness, creates essential space for reflection and genuine self-knowledge. By cultivating regular moments of silence in your life, you learn to listen to your own inner voice and distinguish between what is truly essential and what is merely noise and distraction. Ultimately, being a master of silence is not about remaining quiet out of weakness or fear, but about speaking only when necessary and doing so with wisdom and intention. It's a skill that few people possess, but that everyone admires and respects. True strength lies in knowing that you could react, could defend yourself, could have the last word, but choosing not to do so because your inner peace is more valuable than winning an argument or proving a point. Not everything deserves your attention and mental energy. This is a truth that many people intellectually understand, but few consistently apply in their daily lives. We live in a world where we are constantly bombarded by stimuli, breaking news, social media notifications, other people's opinions, criticism, praise, and countless demands on our attention. But in Stoicism, wisdom lies in knowing what to let into your consciousness and, more importantly, what to consciously let pass by without engagement. The capacity to dismiss what doesn't truly matter is one of the most powerful tools available for achieving lasting inner peace and emotional freedom. To dismiss or ignore in the Stoic sense is not about arrogance, superiority, or callous indifference to others. It's not about rejecting people or situations wholesale, but rather about intelligently protecting your mind from everything that is insignificant to your genuine growth and purposeful journey through life. Think of a stone sitting in the middle of a flowing river. It doesn't fight against the current, but it also isn't swept away by the water's force. Similarly, you must learn to observe what happens around you without becoming emotionally entangled with every single occurrence or opinion that crosses your path. The Stoic is not insensitive or callous, but rather selective and discerning. They value their mental energy as a precious, finite resource that should be invested wisely. How many times have you wasted precious time and emotional energy trying to convince someone who clearly wasn't interested in understanding your perspective? How often have you found yourself consumed by criticism that, upon deeper reflection, held no real meaning or validity? Intelligent dismissal is the antidote to these exhausting mental drains. It's not about running away or avoiding challenges. It's about recognizing what deserves your energy and what doesn't. When you consciously choose where to place your attention and focus, you're making a powerful statement that only what truly matters will have space in your mental and emotional landscape. Seneca, one of the great masters of Stoicism, wrote, "Nothing is more worthy of contempt than caring about others' contempt." This profound statement teaches us that worrying about what others think or say about us is often a trap that enslaves our minds unnecessarily. When you allow yourself to be affected by others' opinions, judgments, or casual remarks, you're essentially handing over your personal power to them. It's like voluntarily carrying a suitcase full of stones that don't belong to you. Learning to drop this unnecessary weight is profoundly liberating and empowering. Practicing the art of intelligent dismissal requires 3 simple but powerful steps. First, ask yourself, will this matter a year from now? If the answer is no, consciously discard it from your mental space. Second, clearly identify what is genuinely significant and meaningful to you based on your core values and life objectives. If a situation or comment doesn't contribute positively to your values or goals, don't allow it to steal your peace and energy. Third, practice emotional detachment from trivial matters. This doesn't mean you don't care about anything, but rather that you don't allow external circumstances to determine your internal emotional state. When you apply this lesson consistently, you'll notice that your mind becomes significantly lighter and your energy becomes much more focused and directed. You begin to distinguish clearly between the essential and the superfluous, separating what deserves your precious attention from what should simply be ignored and dismissed. After all, as Epictetus taught, we cannot control the actions of others. We can only control how we choose to react to them. This clarity of focus becomes the foundation for living with greater freedom, purpose, and serenity. Make the art of intelligent dismissal a daily habit. Ignore provocations that have no real foundation. Avoid unnecessary drama that adds no value to your life, and consciously dismiss distractions that contribute nothing meaningful to your growth or happiness. Reserve your energy for what truly makes a difference in your life and the lives of others. You weren't created to fight every single battle that presents itself. You were created to choose wisely and win the battles that truly matter for your highest good and purpose. What seems unbearable today will be nothing more than a distant memory tomorrow. This represents one of the greatest truths of Stoicism, and also one of the most powerful tools for facing adversity with grace and resilience. When you're confronting a difficult problem or painful situation, it's easy to become completely lost in the intensity of the present moment, feeling as though the pain, discomfort, or frustration will last forever. But the Stoic mind sees beyond the immediate circumstances, understanding that everything in life is ultimately temporary and that today's storm does not define tomorrow's weather. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest emperors and philosophers in history, reminds us, "If it is endurable, then endure it." This simple yet profound statement carries the essence of a resilient mindset. The Stoic doesn't deny the existence of suffering or pretend that difficulties don't hurt. Instead, they recognize that suffering, no matter how intense it may seem in the moment, is finite and will eventually pass. They understand that difficulties, regardless of how overwhelming they appear, have an expiration date. This perspective expands your mental horizon and helps you recognize that the present moment is just a small part of the larger tapestry of your life experience. Think about a storm in nature. When you're in the middle of it, the sensation is that it will never end. The wind howls, the rain pounds, and everything seems chaotic and overwhelming. But inevitably, every storm passes. The sky clears, the winds calm, and tranquility returns. The same principle applies to the difficulties and challenges we face in life. When you train your mind to look beyond the present crisis, you realize that you're closer to a resolution than you might imagine. This expanded perspective not only brings emotional relief, but also provides the clarity necessary to make wiser, more strategic decisions. A Stoic doesn't drown in their emotions during difficult times. Instead, they navigate through them skillfully, knowing that calm waters lie ahead. They maintain their course with steady determination, understanding that this too shall pass. A powerful practice for cultivating this unshakable horizon is to ask yourself, will this problem still matter a year from now? What about 5 years from now? This simple reflection puts the present moment into proper perspective and reduces the emotional charge that can make problems seem insurmountable. What appears to be an impossible crisis today may actually be just a minor obstacle when viewed from the vantage point of time and distance. This ability to resize and reframe problems is one of the great strengths of Stoicism, and a crucial differentiator for those who wish to remain unshakable regardless of circumstances. Thinking beyond the present moment doesn't mean ignoring or dismissing current realities, but rather observing the present with an expanded, long-term vision. It's like looking at a detailed map while others get lost in the maze of momentary emotions and reactive thinking. While many people become trapped in the labyrinth of temporary feelings and circumstances, the Stoic climbs to a high vantage point and visualizes the entire journey ahead. This ability to step back emotionally allows for clearer thinking and more rational decision-making based on wisdom rather than impulse. To apply this lesson effectively requires consistent training and practice. Daily moments of meditation and introspection become fundamental tools for developing this perspective. During a few minutes each day, visualize a problem you're currently facing and project yourself into the future. Imagine how you, as your future self, will look back on this current moment. Often, what seems so enormous and overwhelming today will appear small and even irrelevant with the passage of time. Finally, remember that the key to overcoming any challenge lies in how you choose to interpret and frame it mentally. When you learn to think beyond the immediate moment, you discover that you possess much more inner strength and resilience than you ever imagined possible. The Stoic understands that life consists of natural cycles and rhythms, and that even the greatest storms eventually pass. Like the horizon that always lies ahead, continue moving forward with serenity and confidence. What appears today to be an insurmountable obstacle will tomorrow be just another stepping stone in your journey of growth and self-development. All of us naturally create expectations in our minds. We construct detailed scenarios about how things should happen, how people should behave, and how the world should respond to our efforts and intentions. But it's precisely in this desire to control outcomes that much of human suffering originates and takes root. When we expect everything to unfold exactly according to our plans and preferences, we become prisoners of a world that was never meant to be entirely predictable or controllable. In Stoicism, the focus is exclusively on what we can actually control: our thoughts, our actions, our decisions, and our responses to circumstances. Everything beyond these internal factors is considered external, something that should not consume our energy or determine our inner peace and well-being. Think about how many times you've experienced disappointment because something didn't turn out as you wanted or expected. Perhaps it was a promotion at work that never materialized, a person who didn't respond to your feelings the way you hoped, or simply a plan that went completely awry despite your careful preparation. The problem wasn't necessarily the event itself, but rather the emotional weight and significance you assigned to that event not matching your predetermined expectations. This happens because when we create rigid expectations about outcomes, we essentially place our well-being and happiness in the hands of factors completely beyond our control. The Stoic, however, learns to accept what happens as an inevitable part of life's natural flow while directing their attention and energy toward what actually lies within their sphere of influence. Free yourself from the exhausting habit of trying to control other people's behavior, reactions, and choices. Every person has their own unique journey, experiences, and motivations, and you cannot force anyone to act according to your expectations or preferences. This applies to work colleagues, romantic partners, friends, family members, and even strangers you encounter. Frustration arises when we demand that others be different from who they naturally are or behave in ways that align with our personal preferences. As Marcus Aurelius wisely counseled, begin each day by reminding yourself that you will encounter ungrateful, dishonest, envious, and rude people. This should not surprise you. Accepting this reality isn't pessimism or negative thinking. It's practical wisdom and mature realism. When you stop demanding that the world and the people in it conform to your personal preferences and expectations, you create space for genuine peace and contentment to flourish. A powerful practice for overcoming the burden of expectations is to consistently ask yourself, does this depend on me? If the answer is yes, then invest your full effort and attention. If the answer is no, then consciously let it go and redirect your energy elsewhere. For example, you can control the quality of effort you put into your work, but you cannot control your supervisor's reaction or decision-making process. You can choose to be kind and considerate toward people, but you cannot control whether they reciprocate that kindness or even acknowledge it. This simple distinction between what is and isn't within your control is what separates anxiety from freedom. frustration from peace. When you liberate yourself from the compulsive need to control outcomes and other people's behavior, you discover something remarkable. Things that once seemed enormous and overwhelming become manageable, and your energy gets redirected toward what truly matters and makes a real difference. You begin to realize that expectations often function like invisible chains that bind you to unnecessary suffering. Breaking free from these chains is always a conscious choice, a choice to invest your precious energy in what you can actually change and influence, which is fundamentally yourself and your own responses to life's experiences. True control was never located in the external world or in other people's behavior. It has always resided in how you choose to react, interpret, and live through the experiences that come your way. Peace is not found in a perfect world that matches all your preferences, but in a well-trained mind that can accept imperfection with wisdom, grace, and equanimity. In Stoicism, discomfort is not viewed as something to be avoided at all costs, but rather as a valuable opportunity for growth and character development. Learning to face discomfort head-on instead of running away from it represents one of the most powerful lessons you can integrate into your life. The deliberate practice of exposing yourself to what is uncomfortable, both physically and emotionally, strengthens your mind, making it more resilient and better prepared to face any adversity that life might present. The Stoic understands that discomfort is temporary, but the strength gained by overcoming it becomes a permanent part of your character and inner resources. Imagine a cold morning when getting out of your warm bed seems like the most difficult task in the world. The Stoic doesn't hesitate or negotiate with comfort. They see the cold shower or the challenging walk in harsh weather as an opportunity to push beyond perceived limitations and develop discipline and self-mastery. When you deliberately face physical discomfort, you develop mental discipline and demonstrate to yourself that your mind is much stronger than you previously believed. This practice might seem simple on the surface, but it carries a profound lesson. The mind possesses far more strength and resilience than most people ever tap into or explore. When you become accustomed to small, manageable doses of discomfort on a regular basis, you create a kind of mental immunity against life's larger challenges and setbacks. Your tolerance for difficulty increases, and your capacity to remain calm under pressure expands significantly. This philosophy applies equally to emotional discomforts that are inevitable parts of human experience. Conflicts, criticisms, and setbacks don't have to be paralyzing or devastating. As Seneca advised, we should prepare ourselves for difficulties not as pessimists expecting the worst, but as strategic thinkers who understand that preparation leads to resilience. Face life's challenges as training exercises for your spirit and character. Just as an athlete strengthens their muscles by gradually resisting heavier weights, you can strengthen your soul by consciously engaging with challenging emotions and difficult situations. Instead of automatically avoiding or escaping from difficulties, ask yourself, what can this experience teach me? How can I grow from this challenge? This shift in mindset transforms every obstacle into a stepping stone for personal development and character building. Deliberately exposing yourself to discomfort in planned, controlled ways is a method for becoming more resistant to external pressures and influences. Practices like intermittent fasting, challenging physical exercise, or temporarily avoiding certain material comforts teach you that luxury and convenience don't define your happiness or well-being. When you choose to give up something temporarily, you discover that you need far less than you previously imagined to be content and fulfilled. This realization reduces your dependence on external factors for emotional stability and increases your self-sufficiency and inner resourcefulness. Learning to find peace within discomfort is profoundly liberating. When you understand that life doesn't need to be comfortable all the time, you stop fearing the unpredictable aspects of existence. Imagine the impact this could have on your daily life. Criticism from a colleague wouldn't be capable of shaking your confidence. A difficult day at work wouldn't be sufficient to destroy your positive mood or sense of purpose. This inner strength translates directly into greater tranquility and resilience when facing any form of adversity. The practice of embracing discomfort also restores your connection to the present moment. When facing uncomfortable situations, your mind becomes completely focused on the here and now, disconnecting from anxieties about the future or regrets about the past. This is one of the greatest gifts that discomfort offers. It teaches us to live more consciously and with greater awareness of the present moment. Adopt discomfort as your ally rather than your enemy. Don't avoid challenging situations. Seek them out strategically and with intention. Face physical challenges willingly. Accept emotional difficulties as opportunities for growth, and occasionally choose to give up certain comforts by your own deliberate choice. By doing this consistently, you not only find peace in the midst of chaos, but become the very embodiment of stoic resilience and mental toughness. Discomfort is not your enemy. It's one of your most valuable teachers, offering lessons in strength, patience, and self-discovery that comfort never could provide. Not everything that happens around you is a direct reflection of who you are as a person. Much of the suffering we carry stems from our natural tendency to personalize external events and other people's actions, as if everything were intentionally directed at us personally. This habit of interpreting occurrences through the filter of me makes us unnecessarily vulnerable and traps us in an exhausting emotional cycle. Stoicism teaches us that developing healthy indifference is an act of emotional intelligence and a demonstration of genuine inner strength. Imagine a common scenario. Someone makes a rude comment or behaves in a hostile manner toward you. Naturally, your initial reaction might be anger or hurt feelings, believing that this attitude was a personal attack directed specifically at you. However, consider for a moment that people often act based on their own internal struggles, stress levels, personal problems, or simple ignorance rather than anything specifically related to you as an individual. As Seneca observed, we are often more affected by our imagination than by reality itself. In other words, the impact of any action is directly connected to how you choose to interpret and frame that action in your mind. When you understand that not everything revolves around you personally, you discover a type of freedom that few people ever experience. But what exactly is indifference in the Stoic context? It's not apathy, emotional numbness, or lack of empathy for others. Stoic indifference means not reacting excessively to external stimuli that have no real relevance to your peace of mind or life purpose. It's a conscious decision not to be swept away by the emotional heat of the moment. It's a state of mental clarity that separates what truly matters from what is superficial and temporary, keeping your focus on what genuinely makes a positive difference in your life and the lives of others. When you realize that you have the power to choose how to react, or even to choose not to react at all, you gain complete control over your inner experience and emotional state. A practical example of Stoic indifference can be observed in social media interactions. How many times have you witnessed someone being criticized or attacked online? If the person being attacked chooses not to respond or engage, the situation often dissolves naturally on its own. This happens because reactions and defensive responses fuel conflict and drama, while indifference starves it of the energy it needs to continue. By ignoring the attack, the person maintains their dignity and preserves their inner peace. However, reacting impulsively often leads to an endless cycle of accusations, arguments, and emotional wounds that serve no constructive purpose. How can you cultivate this practical indifference in your daily life? First, recognize that other people's opinions and actions are reflections of their internal state, not definitive statements about your worth or value as a person. External approval is not necessary for your happiness or self-worth. Remember that what others think or do reflects their own experiences, biases, and current emotional state, not your true nature or character. Second, practice the powerful pause. When something bothers or upsets you, resist the urge to react immediately. Take a deep breath, step back mentally, analyze the situation with emotional distance, and ask yourself, does this truly matter for my life and well-being? Will this situation have any significance a week from now? Finally, train your focus and attention like a muscle. Direct your energy exclusively toward what lies within your control and influence. Everything else should be treated as background noise that doesn't deserve your precious mental and emotional resources. Indifference is not about ignoring people or situations around you, but about protecting your mind from being captured and overwhelmed by unnecessary chaos and drama. The more you practice this selective attention, the more you realize that most of the things that used to irritate, worry, or hurt you simply don't deserve your attention or emotional investment. Adopting this practice in your life is like installing a sophisticated emotional filter. Only what is valuable, constructive, and genuinely meaningful passes through this filter. Everything else is automatically discarded before it can disturb your inner equilibrium. When you master the value of intelligent indifference, you discover a peace that doesn't depend on external circumstances, being perfect, or people behaving exactly as you prefer. Be a conscious observer of life rather than an emotional sponge that absorbs everything happening around you. The world will continue to operate in sometimes chaotic and unpredictable ways, but you can choose not to participate in unnecessary emotional turmoil. Indifference, properly understood and applied, becomes the key to walking through life with genuine serenity, without wearing yourself out over things that ultimately don't matter for your growth, happiness, or contribution to the world. Comparison is one of the greatest enemies of inner peace and contentment. It places us in an infinite race, constantly trying to reach standards that aren't always our own or even based in reality. In Stoicism, the idea of living according to your own nature and unique path is fundamental. Every person has a distinct journey with challenges, talents, and opportunities that cannot and should not be measured by someone else's standards or achievements. However, in a world where we are constantly exposed to other people's apparently perfect accomplishments and highlight reels, it's easy to fall into the trap of comparing our behind-the-scenes struggles with others' carefully curated public presentations. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't waste what you have by desiring what you don't have." This teaching reminds us that comparison robs us of the present moment and blinds us to our own progress and blessings. When you look at another person's success or happiness and feel that you're falling behind or not measuring up, you're essentially ignoring the blessings and advances you've already achieved in your own life. The grass might appear greener on the other side, but we rarely consider the work, sacrifice, or hidden struggles that went into maintaining that apparent perfection. The external shine often conceals invisible battles and challenges that we never see or consider. Comparison disconnects us from our authentic essence and unique path. Every time you measure yourself against someone else's success or circumstances, you're abandoning your own trajectory and progress. The Stoic understands that the only valid comparison is with who you were yesterday. If you're making an effort to become slightly better each day, you're already succeeding by the most important measure. Think about this carefully. What do you actually gain by comparing your journey with another person's path? Does it motivate you, or does it leave you feeling discouraged and inadequate? In most cases, the result is anxiety, frustration, and a persistent sense of not being good enough. These feelings serve no constructive purpose and only divert focus from what truly matters: your internal progress and personal growth. Imagine an athlete running on a track. If they constantly look at other runners instead of focusing on their own performance, they lose focus, rhythm, and efficiency. They cannot control other athletes' performance, but they have complete control over their own effort, technique, and mental state. This is exactly how we should approach life. When you focus only on your own path, you begin to appreciate every small victory and understand that progress happens at your own unique pace. Some people reach their peak early in life, others later, and this timing doesn't matter. What's important is continuing to move forward with purpose and intention. Comparison frequently bases itself on illusions and carefully constructed facades. On social media platforms, for example, people typically share only their happiest moments, victories, and achievements. This creates a false impression that their lives are perfect and problem-free. But nobody posts about their failures, difficult days, or inevitable setbacks. Comparing yourself to such a distorted representation is fundamentally unfair to yourself. You're not competing with reality. You're competing with a carefully edited fantasy. To combat this toxic pattern, practice gratitude for what you already have and have accomplished. Whenever you feel envy or frustration when observing someone else's life, take a conscious pause and reflect on the good things you've already achieved and the progress you've made. Strengthen your internal focus by asking yourself, how can I grow from where I am right now? What's the next step in my personal development? Stoicism doesn't teach us to ignore growth or become complacent, but rather to concentrate on personal evolution without becoming distracted by other people's journeys. Remember that your path is uniquely yours. There's no real competition because no two lives are identical in their circumstances, challenges, or purposes. When you truly understand this fundamental truth, you find genuine freedom and peace. If you've made it this far in understanding these principles, congratulations. This demonstrates that you're genuinely committed to transforming your mind into a true fortress of resilience and wisdom. Today, we immerse ourselves in the golden rules of Stoicism through an hour-long journey exploring timeless wisdom from Marcus Aurelius to the fundamental principles that have the power to transform our lives. We will share how this ancient philosophy can be applied in the modern world to help us face daily challenges and find deeper meaning in our existence. As we venture into this transformative journey, I invite you to reflect on your own life, question your beliefs, and consider how the principles of Stoicism can help you achieve greater mental clarity, lasting inner peace, and a deeper connection with the world around you. Prepare to immerse yourself in the wisdom of the Stoics and learn timeless lessons that will guide you toward a fuller and more meaningful life. This journey is not only an exploration of Stoicism, but also an opportunity to transform your perspective and find a path toward authentic happiness and inner fulfillment. Let us begin this journey together toward discovery and transformation, discovering how to control your emotions and unlock your true potential. The world is full of traps on every corner, ready to strip away your masculine power. Just take a look at every famous movie or Netflix show being promoted, or the types of people being idolized today. Nothing escapes the elite's mental control agenda. Men are being brainwashed to accept weakness. There is a very famous story about a lion that I want you to hear, and it perfectly illustrates how society systematically weakens strong individuals. Once upon a time, there was a fierce lion that was feared by all. One day, the lion fell in love with the farmer's daughter. But there was a problem. The farmer hated the lion, and upon learning of the lion's love for his daughter, wanted to do everything possible to prevent it. So the cunning farmer called the lion and told him he would only allow him to marry his daughter under one condition, that the lion remove his sharp claws for his daughter's safety. The lion thought, well, it's just a small price for a great reward, and went to a rock and broke off his claws. The next day he went to the farmer and said, "Now I have no sharp claws. Give me your daughter's hand in marriage." But the cunning farmer told him to do one more thing, to remove his sharp teeth and fangs. The lion agreed to this condition as well, and broke his sharp teeth and fangs. However, when the lion returned to the farmer the next day, the farmer attacked and killed him. This time, the lion had no claws or sharp teeth to defend himself. Everything that gave the lion strength, he chose to surrender voluntarily, one by one. Remember, brothers, the world you live in today is no different. There are forces much more at play that have carefully designed a matrix to keep you enslaved to your desires and impulses. And here's the harsh truth. You can blame the farmer or the elites all you want, but at the end of the day, it was the lion who chose to obey them voluntarily. Strength is the virtue that all men must follow, whether in professional, financial, or romantic life. Every man naturally desires to feel dominant, strong, and powerful because that's what you are. All men desire a strong sense of drive, but many of us don't have it because we surrender to behaviors that prevent us from becoming the strong men we were destined to be. Today, men complain about everything, spend too much money on drugs and pornography, and even apologize to others for things that don't require apologies, developing habits that weaken them. One of the most insidious habits that weakens men is mocking others. This is a point that not many people talk about, but as a high-value man, you should never belittle others instead of elevating your own status. This can show you as someone insecure and disrespectful. This is a crucial aspect that is often overlooked when talking about authentic masculinity. Perhaps you've heard the example of the crab bucket. When one crab is about to escape from the bucket, others pull it back down. When someone is trying to improve their life or achieve a goal, sometimes others may feel uncomfortable or jealous. This type of attitude is neither constructive nor honorable. If you find yourself mocking others, Remember that you are beneath them, period. Of course, this doesn't mean you shouldn't correct someone for their mistakes, but don't mock them. As a man, you should teach and guide your brothers without resentment or hidden agendas. You can offer constructive correction and valuable advice so they can learn and grow. Remember, strong and confident men don't belittle others. Instead, listen to what Mike Tyson says about this. Social media has made you very comfortable with disrespecting people and not getting punched in the face for it. Another critical weakness that destroys masculine strength is failing to accept responsibility. Returning to the story of the lion and the farmer's daughter, the main reason why the lion loses everything in the end comes down to the fact that he was not aware of his responsibility. His responsibility was to live like a lion. His prey and sharp claws were part of what made him a lion, but he forgot this responsibility and chose to abandon it. The same thing happens in your life. Accept your responsibilities with pride. Responsibilities are not a burden, but an integral part of our existence. I want you to say with me, I will honor my responsibilities with pride because they are what make me a man. The day you choose to escape from your responsibilities is the day you choose to completely abandon your masculinity. I want you to memorize this quote. The price of greatness is responsibility. Listen to it again. The price of greatness is responsibility. This not only strengthens our own identity as men, but also contributes to the welfare of those around us. Responsibility should not be avoided or abandoned. Instead, it should be embraced as a path to greatness and the fulfillment of our potential as men. Running away from failure represents another challenge for many men today. Most men always choose comfort over growth. Remember that growth is painful and is often hidden behind failure. There's a famous example of the man who digs in search of diamonds. He doesn't know how deep below the surface the diamond lies, but he keeps digging. At first, he only sees more dirt every time he digs, but he continues digging. After hours or even days, he finds what he was looking for. So remember, brothers, failure is not the end. If that's the mentality you have, you can be sure you'll never succeed in anything. Think of anything worth having. Suppose you start a business. At first, you may face many so-called failures while trying to learn the business and win over your customers. But when you stay in the game long enough and don't try to run from these temporary failures, you'll see yourself grow. The same thing happens with women. At first, when you approach them, you may seem like a strange man who doesn't know how to interact, but your success is behind these temporary failures. This is a small price that a strong man must pay for success. Often, we are trained as children to be ashamed of our mistakes and failures and to try to justify them by blaming someone else. You may have said, "It's not my fault," or "That person is to blame." These are the thoughts of a loser. I want you to hear this quote and write it somewhere if you wish. It is a weak man who blames his failure on the strength of others. Submission to futile laws comes far too easily. Do you want to know the difference between a coward and a high-value man? Simple. The coward always aligns with the majority, even if what they're saying is clearly wrong. And worst of all, the coward expects the high-value man to also submit to these futile and harmful laws and regulations. A high-value man always examines and judges everything before deciding to follow. In today's world, we have been so conditioned by the mentality that you shouldn't judge or that you shouldn't do this or that this is getting out of control. You're simply a puppet and a lab rat at this point, submitting to all the agendas and laws they create. There's nothing wrong with obeying, but obey only what is aligned with your purpose, your mission, and above all, remember that beyond God, nothing is above the law of the Almighty. Ask yourself if you are someone who is easily intimidated and tries to please everyone. For some men, it can be incredibly difficult to learn to say no, but if you act based on truth, you'll realize that the world won't crumble around you. I've seen many men live a life of fear in marriage, as if their wives were some kind of tyrants, and they don't dare to speak or correct them. This is a clear example of feudal submission. Having weak body language represents another critical weakness. The concept of body language is very important. This includes non-verbal signals like a handshake, eye contact, how you sit, walk, and move when you converse and relate to others. People can perceive if you are a strong or weak man by your body language. In today's society, where agendas and expectations may have turned against traditionally strong masculinity, it's more important than ever for men to be aware of their body language. Being intentional with your body means you should strive to project an image of confidence, strength, and determination. Maintain an upright and confident posture, walk with a firm and secure step, and maintain appropriate eye contact when relating to others. Be intentional with your body and maintain a masculine posture. Remember that your body language is your letter of introduction before you say a word. It can influence how others perceive you and how they treat you. If you present yourself as a strong and confident man through your body language, others are less likely to try to take advantage of you. It's a valuable skill for any man seeking success in personal and professional life. Wasting your youth represents perhaps the most devastating mistake a man can make. We always talk about the importance of your young days on this channel. Your 20s and even your 30s to some extent are what we call the golden days. These are the days when you should build, build, and build. Imagine a farmer who plants a seed. He doesn't expect the seed to bear fruit the next day. In your 20s, like the farmer, you should plant spiritual, emotional, and physical seeds that will help you grow. But here's the most important part. Don't expect to harvest those fruits immediately. Just keep planting, and before you know it, you'll have planted forests and gardens that will attract the right kind of life. When I say planting, I mean challenging yourself. This doesn't mean you should struggle and work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but always keep in mind that these are the days when you have the most energy and opportunities to take risks. Take advantage of this. Especially when you're young, you may feel like you're missing out on the culture of being with various people by investing in yourself, but resist that temptation. You may not understand it now, but as you mature and age, you'll thank yourself for not getting distracted. Listen to what the wisest man on earth has to say about your young days. These are Solomon's words. You who are young, be happy while you are young, and let your heart rejoice in the days of your youth. Follow the impulses of your heart and what your eyes see, but keep in mind that for all these things, God will bring you to judgment. Being lazy and unproductive with your time represents the final critical weakness that destroys masculine potential. How we structure our day and manage our time can make a big difference in our path to success and personal development. What time do you go to bed? What time do you wake up? How is your day structured? What do you do when you return from work? These are all questions you should take seriously. Don't consider them as a secondary task you can address when you have free time. As a man seeking success in all areas, you should carefully plan your day. Think about why the powerful are so successful. Every aspect and area was carefully planned. Similarly, think about every part of your day, the people you relate to, and the type of content you consume. If you don't have the right thoughts in your mind, keep in mind that you've given open access for the matrix to penetrate you. Laziness is the greatest enemy of men today. As a man, you may have many thoughts related to business or life, but you never act on them. If you allow laziness to gradually infiltrate you without realizing it, laziness will devour you and prevent you from advancing productively in your life. Always remember, brothers, that laziness only succeeds against weak men because a high-value man quickly learns to detect it and correct it. Stay always conscious of laziness and fight it as soon as possible. So remember, brothers, weakness is the virtue of the modern world. Weakness is what they pursue, but strength is your greatest virtue. Seek strength in every opportunity, and remember that God is your greatest strength. Every day presents opportunities to grow and advance toward our goals, and it depends on us to seize those opportunities consciously and decisively. Marcus Aurelius is one of the most recognized Stoic philosophers in history. He ruled as Roman emperor from 161 to 180 AD, and was the last ruler of a line later known as the Five Good Emperors. Marcus Aurelius occupied one of the highest positions of power in the world at that time and dedicated his life to equity and justice, a more than honorable fact since he had access to the fulfillment of all his temptations and desires at will without any obstacle. During his time as emperor, Aurelius made time to write a series of autobiographical texts now known as the Meditations, which have become one of the most important texts within Stoic philosophy. In the Meditations, Aurelius offers guidelines on how to improve oneself, focusing mainly on adopting a cosmic perspective and critically analyzing the judgment you have about yourself and others. As leader of a powerful empire that went through multiple wars during his reign, Aurelius used his own Stoic philosophy to eliminate stress and be the most reliable and efficient leader he could become. Stoicism is an ancient and extremely influential philosophy that not only represents a theory, but also a deeply inspiring way of thinking and living. The Stoics firmly held that doing the right thing was the key to achieving individual happiness, and to do the right thing required solid judgment and clear, rational thinking. Through 5 essential lessons, all based on the teachings of Marcus Aurelius, we can learn how to cultivate a tranquil mind and achieve emotional mastery. The first fundamental lesson involves embracing virtues. Marcus Aurelius tells us to explore within ourselves because a spring of goodness is ready to flow if we persist in our search. A virtue can be understood as an excellence of character, or in simpler terms, morally correct behavior. This behavior benefits you, those around you, and also contributes to the common good. Stoicism embraces the idea of an interconnected universe where everything and everyone shares a bond. Consequently, what serves the common good eventually also benefits you. Therefore, the Stoics firmly believed that those in harmony with reason were those who dedicated themselves to broader welfare. In other words, they practiced virtues. Conversely, the absence of virtuous conduct is attributed to ignorance. According to the Stoics, when life leads you toward unforeseen circumstances, virtues can be your guides, orienting you on the right path and keeping you centered. That's why people most enriched with virtue usually radiate tranquility and composure. To incorporate virtues into your life, it's essential to internalize the 4 cardinal virtues of Stoicism. wisdom, justice, temperance, and courage. From the Stoic perspective, wisdom implies discerning between good, bad, neutral, and everything in between. It means overcoming emotions and allowing reason to guide what is morally correct. Faced with a dilemma, wisdom gives you the power to analyze both options with mental clarity. Next is justice, which is based on wisdom and represents a commitment to what is right and fair for both oneself and others. The Stoics saw it as a duty to oneself, others, and society as a whole. Courage, as the third virtue, empowers you to act even when you feel personal fear. It drives you to take action for the common good or face challenges despite uncertainties about the outcome. Courage doesn't suppose the elimination of fear, desire, or anxiety, but a conscious decision to move forward, overcoming emotional barriers. Finally, temperance, also known as moderation, implies maintaining a balance between extremes. It's about exercising self-control, restraint, and discipline. Marcus Aurelius highlighted the human capacity for self-regulation that differentiates us from animals. Temperance prioritizes long-term well-being over momentary gratification. Let's take an everyday example: a bag of potato chips. Indulging might provide momentary pleasure, but puts health and mood at risk. In this case, practicing temperance means stopping after a few bites. Wisdom is essential to determine the appropriate amount before putting on the brakes. Stoicism classifies both things and actions into categories of goods, evils, and indifference. Seeking good, avoiding evil, and accepting indifference according to personal preference are fundamental principles. Moving away from these virtues would be promoting evil, stealing, showing disrespect, acting imprudently, or refraining from doing good. Actions considered indifferent, like taking a quiet walk, don't conform to these principles. These virtues offer more than just personal improvements. They foster a state of serenity and composure. Aligning your actions with these virtues ensures you always move on the path of righteousness, guided by reason, and thus cultivating a tranquil mind. The second essential lesson involves embracing a broader perspective. In Marcus Aurelius's eloquent words, sharing Plato's wisdom, when you want to talk about people, it's better to adopt a panoramic view and see everything at once. Adopting a panoramic view is a vital aspect for achieving mental clarity. In the bustle of life, we often find ourselves trapped in the thick of every problem and challenge, feeling as if we carry the weight of the world. Imagine being part of a small crowd. It might seem as if the entire city was suffocated by congestion. However, changing your viewpoint by just a few steps can reveal a completely different reality. In essence, when we detach and contemplate the great tapestry of our world and existence, we realize how small our personal experiences are and how infinitesimal we are in the vast scheme of things. This shift in perspective reveals the expansive realm beyond our immediate encounter. Often, people overlook the truth that their own encounters and viewpoints are not the only ones deserving consideration, even within their own lives. Consider someone who has had an unfavorable experience with dogs. They might find it hard to conceive that dogs could be beloved companions for others unless they deliberately recognize the possibility of diverse experiences. From time to time, it's essential to stop and ask ourselves what we are overlooking or not fully understanding. This practice of self-evaluation has numerous advantages. Consider this situation. You must decide whether to remain in your current job or accept a position that has presented itself elsewhere. This choice can be overwhelming, especially if you're not sure whether either option will meet your goals. While your current job provides stability and you have reservations about the additional responsibilities a promotion would entail, the appeal of an improved salary is tempting. It's easy to feel trapped in this dilemma. However, beneath the surface lies a wealth of unexplored opportunities. Have you considered venturing into a completely different field or exploring a side project that complements your current work? Perhaps diving into a passion to divert your focus from tasks you find less attractive. It's entirely plausible that numerous unexplored opportunities in life are escaping your consciousness. Adopting a panoramic perspective instead of focusing solely on immediate concerns helps significantly in informed decision-making. Expanding your focus is not only valuable for determining priorities, but also for forming opinions and making comprehensive judgments. It's imperative to consider all aspects and possibilities within a given situation. Additionally, stepping back implies temporarily moving away from personal prejudices and viewpoints. Momentarily renouncing your desires can provide you with a new perspective, forcing you to reflect on those around you and your responsibilities toward them. In the intensity of the moment, you might perceive an action like littering as trivial. However, by stopping and expanding your perspective to consider the world and possible consequences, if everyone acted the same way, the insignificance of your desire to litter becomes clearly evident compared to the planet's welfare. As mentioned earlier, the Stoics firmly believed in the interconnection of everything in the world, postulating that the general improvement of the world inherently contributes to personal welfare. Therefore, stepping back to embrace a global perspective instead of focusing only on your own life has immense importance. Faced with an adverse decision, challenge, or transcendental change, you have the capacity to pose introspective questions, whether in the heat of the moment or later, perhaps during an outdoor walk or during a reflective writing session, an activity Marcus Aurelius particularly advocated. These questions give you the opportunity to delve into your thoughts and actions. You might believe that in the excitement of the moment, discarding trash has no great relevance, but by stepping back and reflecting on the totality of the world, considering the possibility that others might do the same, you realize the insignificance of the impulse to litter compared to global welfare. As mentioned previously, the Stoics held that everything in the world is intertwined and that the general improvement of the world also benefits your personal welfare. Therefore, stepping away and contemplating the world in its totality instead of just your life acquires monumental importance. By adopting a global perspective, you will always have an overview that will free you from limitations, prejudices, or doubts. The third crucial lesson centers on exercising the duality of control. In Marcus Aurelius's words, "Your power resides in your mind, not in external events. Recognize this, and you will find strength." The duality of control is the distinction between what we can control and what we cannot. For example, the weather, traffic problems, or what others think about you are outside your control. But how you dress, what time you leave, and the type of people you surround yourself with, that you can control. So every time you face a situation that makes you feel a certain way, ask yourself, what is in our hands to control? Everything we can control is a reason to act. What we cannot control, we must learn to accept and embrace without allowing it to affect us. A very important part of the duality of control is amor fati, which translates as love of fate. When you embrace life and all the circumstances it brings you, you will always love life. You cannot escape destiny or decide the circumstances that are outside your control, but you can choose to love your life regardless of what happens. If you discover that you were rejected for a job you've wanted for years, you might think there's no redemption in such a situation. You wanted the job, you tried, and you failed. You couldn't pretend to love fate in a circumstance like this. However, this is a misunderstanding. Instead of seeing the fact that you didn't fulfill your ambition as something purely negative, investigate what led to the negative outcome and use it to make a positive decision. Whether you didn't get the job due to a fault of yours, in which case this is something you can control, you can work on those faults and try again when a similar opportunity appears in the future, or the reason was an external factor like nepotism or a personality clash with a hiring staff member. This was never in your control, which means the opportunity never really existed, and it makes no sense to get angry about something that never existed. Part of accepting fate is distancing yourself from a fixed outcome and external markers of success. If, for example, you want to be a writer and measure your success by the number of sales your book makes, then you'll allow your success to be controlled by the arbitrary book market of the moment. But if you choose to measure your success by how satisfied you are with your final product or by the amount of work you put into it, then you control your success. Undoubtedly, strive your utmost to achieve your objectives, but keep in mind that there's a possibility of not reaching them, and accept it beforehand. By focusing solely on what we can control and committing to accept what is not under our control as it presents itself, we experience inner tranquility regardless of what happens. The fourth transformative lesson involves training your perception. Marcus Aurelius advises us, "Choose not to feel hurt, and you won't be." One of the great teachings of Stoicism is taking control of our perception. We are accustomed to judging everything we encounter, every event we experience, every person we meet. Everything receives a judgment. It's good, bad, boring, fun, beautiful, ugly, etc. This practice, though unconscious, is exhausting and can negatively affect our lives. For example, rating every interaction on a particularly difficult day as terrible tints the day with an even more negative perspective. Labeling a party as boring becomes the narrative of that week. Often, we allow our emotions to influence our judgments, which means these are not completely rational. Furthermore, our tendency to judge every moment goes hand in hand with the excessive use of metaphors and hyperboles, which exaggerate situations. If your partner leaves you, you might say your ex broke your heart instead of accepting the fact that their feelings have changed. This way of thinking shapes our emotions. It's not the event itself that makes us feel bad, but how we choose to think about it, often unconsciously. The Stoics, on the other hand, encourage caution when evaluating everything you encounter and the actions you undertake. One of the ways to be careful involves challenging your judgments, which essentially means looking beyond them. It's having the ability to set aside your first impression and evaluate something through a more optimistic and reasonable lens. You might try to see that boring part of the party as an opportunity to explore a new place and meet some different people. Even if you later discover you didn't connect with anyone, you actually didn't enter with the expectation of the negative. Therefore, practicing reluctance not to judge everything based solely on your first impressions and emotions is the best path to training your perception of life. Every time you have a formed opinion about something, try to question yourself. Is this logical? What did I base my opinion on? Is there a better or more positive way to interpret this? Marcus Aurelius emphasized that damage only exists if you perceive it as such. This implies that any difficult experience you've gone through seems more challenging and negative the more you perceive it that way. You have total control over how much certain situations affect you. The Stoics also encourage you to see anything negative as an opportunity or source of good. As an exercise to cultivate a Stoic perspective, there's a challenge called turning the obstacle around. For example, when a new colleague is a slow learner and their mistakes affect the company's profits, you might feel frustration. This colleague becomes an obstacle to what you're trying to achieve: effectiveness, efficiency, and profits. However, this situation can also be an opportunity for good. It's an opportunity to practice patience, to improve your skills as a teacher, to learn how to integrate new people into the company, and how to handle stressful moments. All of these are skills that will be useful in the long term and should contribute to increasing long-term profits as well. On this topic, Marcus Aurelius famously said, "What hinders action becomes the action. That which stands in our way becomes the way itself." In summary, instead of judging everything exaggeratedly, take time to see things objectively as they are. You might realize that life is simpler and clearer than you thought. Every situation has a positive interpretation and a negative one. By adjusting your mindset accordingly, you'll discover that past annoyances no longer affect you as much, and you go through life with much more ease. The fifth and final lesson focuses on learning to control your emotions. Marcus Aurelius advises us not to allow our emotions to override the reasoning of our mind. We must stop being hypocritical, egocentric, and irritable. Acting impulsively due to emotions often presents itself as a strong contrast to acting rationally, and this is not without reason. Nothing clouds our judgment more than our own emotions. Therefore, if you want to maintain a clear mind at all times, one of the most crucial skills you must master is the ability to control your emotions. According to Marcus Aurelius, the emotion of anger in particular harms us more than it benefits us. Unlike what many think, controlling your emotions doesn't imply suppressing them. When you experience intense anger as a result of betrayal, you can't control that anger by denying its existence to yourself or others or pretending you're fine. It will remain there regardless of how much you try to repress it. Instead, according to the Stoics, controlling emotions like anger is achieved by redirecting them. So when you're experiencing anger next time, ask yourself what you can do with that anger. Yelling at whoever hurt you may seem tempting, but will it help diminish your pain or improve your situation? Will it help the person who betrayed you become better? In summary, think about what you're tempted to do and then ask yourself if it's useful. If it's not, find ways to express your emotions that are useful. Perhaps you can get better results by speaking calmly with the person who hurt you, explaining your feelings and trying to see their point of view. You could also write in a journal, engage in physical exercise, get lost in a video game, or anything else that might help you release your anger. Another example would be anxiety or fear. You can't simply stifle these feelings, but you can channel them in another direction. Instead of allowing anxiety to paralyze you, you can use it as a personal challenge, as an impulse to take actions that make you feel anxious and recognize their presence throughout the process. Imagine you feel too afraid to ask your boss for a raise. For many, this fear becomes a reason to avoid taking that action, and they let themselves be defeated by their anxiety. Others might move forward and see their anxiety as an obstacle that must be suppressed and ignored. However, neither of these perspectives has to be the only option. Instead, your fear is something that can be expressed healthily and might even end up being useful. For example, this fear makes you think about everything that could go wrong, which leads you to consider all possible questions your boss might ask, all the counter-arguments you might receive. This way, you can prepare for them and form a plan for each possible scenario. But most importantly, fear provides positive motivation to move forward, to challenge yourself and grow as a person, to prove to yourself that you can do it, not despite your fear, but partly thanks to it. In that scenario, you can be conscious of anxiety throughout the process and think how incredible it is that you're trying anyway. When you can skillfully redirect intense emotions, you become someone serene regardless of circumstances, and your emotions never affect your ability to think clearly and make intelligent decisions. Controlling your emotions is essential for maintaining mental peace. In the midst of the tumult and discord of contemporary life, it's common to feel trapped in a labyrinth of emotions, anxieties, and circumstances that seem to escape our control while we constantly yearn for tranquility and joy. Stoicism presents itself as an ancient guide that leads us toward inner serenity even in the face of external adversities. In this journey of philosophical reflection, we explore how the practice of acting as if disturbances don't affect us can help us find true inner peace. Stoicism, with its roots in ancient Greece and Rome, offers us a valuable approach to facing life's situations with a Stoic mentality where our reactions and perspectives are shaped by wisdom and rationality. Throughout this exploration, we discover the fundamental pillars of Stoicism and learn how emotional composure becomes armor against adversity, how the discipline of thought frees us from the tyranny of our uncontrollable emotions, and how detachment allows us to embrace life with openness and flexibility. Through the lessons of historical philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, we learn to accept reality and see adversity as an opportunity to strengthen ourselves, as well as to use the power of choosing our responses in any situation. Stoicism is not just an ancient philosophy, but an eternal compass that guides us to find inner peace in a tumultuous world. To understand Stoicism solidly, it's essential to establish a firm foundation in its fundamental principles. Stoicism is not simply a philosophy, but a guide that leads us through life's storms, allowing us to find inner peace regardless of external circumstances. Here are the fundamental concepts in simplified form. Distinguishing between what we can control and what we cannot. The Stoics believe in the importance of differentiating between what is in our control and what is outside of it. Much of human suffering comes from worrying about things that are beyond our reach. Instead of anguishing over what we cannot control, we should direct our energy and focus toward what we can directly influence, such as our attitudes and actions. The importance of our responses represents another crucial principle. For the Stoics, events themselves don't affect us as much as our reactions to them. Cultivating a tranquil and controlled mind implies learning to respond to situations intelligently and rationally instead of being dominated by impulsive emotions. This involves developing the ability to handle adversities with calm and wisdom, regardless of how challenging the circumstances are. Accepting the changing nature of life stands as one of the fundamental principles of Stoicism. It reminds us that life is full of inevitable ups and downs. Instead of resisting changes and difficulties, we are encouraged to embrace them and face them with acceptance, knowing they are a natural and inescapable part of the human journey. By accepting impermanence and the changing nature of all things, we find serenity even in the midst of adversities. Virtue as a guide represents the central principle for the Stoics. They consider virtue to be the path to happiness and inner peace. Cultivating qualities like wisdom, justice, moderation, and courage helps us live in harmony with ourselves and with the world around us. These virtues guide us in making ethical decisions and allow us to maintain our moral integrity even in the most challenging circumstances. In summary, the fundamental principles of Stoicism invite us to develop a mentality that clearly distinguishes what we can control and what we cannot. They teach us to control our emotional reactions, accept change as a natural part of life, and live ethically. By building this solid foundation, we are prepared to explore even more the lessons and Stoic practices. We discover that acting as if nothing disturbs us not only leads us to inner peace, but also to emotional imperturbability, regardless of the adversities we face in our journey through life. To achieve inner peace through Stoicism, detachment presents itself as an invaluable tool that frees us from the chains of desires and expectations, allowing us to find serenity and emotional balance. Let's look in more detail at how detachment can guide us in our search for emotional peace. Eliminating outcomes teaches us not to be too attached to the results of our actions. Instead of obsessing over achieving specific goals, we focus on giving our best in each situation. We accept what comes with serenity and without excessive expectations. This attitude frees us from the stress and anxiety associated with fear of failure, allowing us to embrace each experience as a learning opportunity. Unlocking new possibilities through practicing detachment makes us more flexible and receptive to the opportunities life presents us. By not being rigidly tied to a particular outcome, we are open to exploring new paths and discovering potential in various situations. This mentality allows us to adapt to changes and gives us the ability to see difficulties as challenges that can lead to personal growth. Living in the present through detachment frees us from constant worry about the future, allowing us to fully immerse ourselves in the present moment. By releasing anxiety about what's to come, we find a deeper connection with the present. This connection gives us inner peace as it allows us to appreciate life's small joys and find meaning in the current moment.